Yi Junling woke up and was shocked to see that he had become an old man. The animals in the eastern area were very surprised to see a man there. Junling looked at his reflection in the lake and was shocked, asking how it was possible. After all, he had just been napping in math class. He said he was a 6'5" guy who hadn't met a girl yet and was just about to enjoy his student life. And suddenly he turned into an old man. Lin was shocked and refused to accept this change, since he had already entered the other world. This old man must be a hidden master. He decided to look into his memories. He traveled back in time and saw that this world was called Kunlun, and cultivators ruled here. The original owner of the body, Yi Junling, had exceptional talent and had reached the Golden Core stage at a young age. He was chosen to lead the Zuanianzong Soaring Peak, one of the 6 major religious groups in the eastern wilderness. During a raid on heretical cultivators, he was caught off guard. His dantian was destroyed, and all of his power disappeared, turning him into an ordinary human. He spent the next few decades in complete apathy, shutting himself away on the mountain and taking no interest in the outside world. 10 years have passed since that day. Lin realized that he was just a normal person. It seems he could die at any moment, but then he remembered reading about it at some point. He knew from reading web novels that if it's displacement, there must be some kind of plushie. Lin decided to take action. He told the system that his father was here and asked him to come quickly, but he didn't get any answer, and the system didn't appear. Lin asked him, "Are you playing hide and seek with me?" Then Lin decided to act differently. He fell to his knees and said he was wrong, just kidding, and expect some words from the system. Then he had a thought and decided it wasn't the system. Maybe it's the old man's spirit ring. Maybe he would have to take the blame for the man's illness. Lin took off his ring and asked the old healer if he was there. But again, he got nothing in reply. His nerves got the better of him, and he shouted to the old man. He threw his ring to the ground, raised his cane to the sky, and suddenly everything changed. Lin didn't stop there and started swearing heavily. After this, the system immediately appeared and said that 2 harsh words had been detected. The system automatically activated, prompting the host to behave more decently. Lin was happy about this system and said that he finally showed up. He realized that he had been dishonest and had thought it was just a story about wanting all sorts of powers. The system apologized and explained that it had been asleep. The system was also just waking up. To make up for the problem, she gave the host a starter kit and asked the host if she should open the gift. Lin replied that she should open it already. The system congratulated her on gaining the special ability to meet the force and become stronger. As soon as he faced any opponent whose level was higher than him, Lin would immediately and permanently gain cultivation a notch higher. And there are no side effects. Lin felt sad, thinking that at this moment, he was just an ordinary person. And if he encountered an immortal? The system replied that it had not deceived the master, and he could check to make sure everything would work. Lin got excited and said that if that was the case, he would become invincible. He would be able to beat everyone by one step forever. The old man was curious and asked why he should cultivate. Suddenly, the system showed him a reminder that only an hour remained before his natural death. Why is he already dying? But he has to go down the mountain and find someone to fight with to become stronger. He understood why the old man had been sitting on the mountain all this time. Now he dragged him into this mess too. But then he remembered that he had 35 minutes left. Lin felt sad and asked, "Isn't he going to make it in time?" Lin looked up at the mountain and saw that a huge storm was coming. He asked, "What is it? Is it a pack of monsters?" In a moment, in the storm, Lin saw the sect leader from years ago, hanging in the clouds. The head stood in front of his enemies and said, "Who here dared to do such a thing? And also dared to defy Zuanianzong?" But then Eagle Man appeared from the magic shell, and, upon seeing Zuanianzong, said that they were creatures. The demon monster king was still alive and would exterminate them all that day. The head looked at his enemy and asked, "Is he the evil creature here?" He had once massacred the Lee State and grievously wounded him with his own hands, throwing him off a cliff. And now he survives and shows up to get revenge? He's the only one who can lead this group of creatures. The demon monster king laughed loudly after he said this. The head was shocked and asked, had he broken the barrier and entered the germ soul stage? The warrior immediately became worried and asked the head, "What will they do? They can't compete with such a strong opponent." The head turned around and said that it was also impossible to surrender without a fight. They would fight to the end to protect Shantian. The demon beast king just mocked them and said that he would kill all the stinking Taoists. This caused a war to break out between Xuantian's army and their enemies. However, the monsters were so strong that the warriors struggled to resist. Lin watched all of this from the ground and told someone to hit him. Suddenly, the system appeared and said that he was 30 minutes away from dying. Lin started to worry and realized that time was running out for him. They were too far away to hear him. He decided to climb the stairs, but his back was giving out. He realized that if he went down now, he wouldn't make it in time, so there was only one option left. The demon monster king was yelling at the people, saying that they were weak and that if this was all they could do, he's showing them all the power of the embryonic soul. With all his energy, he used his powers against his enemies. With a single blow, he defeated all the warriors who couldn't even do anything against him. The warriors were injured, and the head understood that there was nothing to be done. The gap between the Golden Core stage and the Germ Soul stage was too big. The Demon Monster King laughed and asked, who else would dare to resist? Let them say goodbye to their lives. But then Lin climbed up the mountain and shouted to the monstrous King Demon to look at him. And don't let him look around, because he was being addressed here. The Demon Monster King flew up to the old man and asked him, is he sick of living? And he allows insults to be hurled in his direction? Lin asked the large bird to attack him. The bird stood still, waiting for Lin to continue. Lin was glad he had arrived in time. From the old man's memories, Lin learned about the loudspeaker in the house, which runs on crystal chi. If it hadn't, he would have been lost. The Demon Monster King replied to the old man that this was the first time he had seen such an old impudent man. But Lin quickly told him that he was seeing it now. The man and his men looked at the mountain and thought, is this really Big Brother Yi? The girl answered that it was unbelievable, as it was the same legend from Soaring Peak. But the warrior said he hadn't interfered in anything for decades, so why suddenly show up here? The head replied that he might want to do his part. But he felt sorry that he had been surprised once and had lost all his power, making him helpless. The Demon Beast King heard the guy's words and asked, Yiling is now taunting the Demon Beast King? Oh, he's just looking for death. And it turns out it's that old useless junk. The demonic animal king asked. Lin called the bird his grandson and said that he would eat him like a quail without cultivation. Suddenly, the system told the host that he had 10 seconds left before he died. Lin noticed that this bird was both slow and talkative. He thought, now I'm probably going to die without a fight. The system started counting down the seconds to his death. But in the last few seconds, the king of demonic animals attacked, saying that since the old man wanted to die like that, he would wipe him to dust. Lin was happy about this because it meant that he had finally fulfilled his long-cherished wish. But the old man's eye suddenly turned on and started counting some information. The system immediately said that an enemy attack at the initial Germ Soul stage had been detected, triggering the ability meeting force. And now the old man was becoming stronger and gaining the strength of a mid-level Germ Soul. Lin began to evolve in the moment. Lin looked at his fiery body and said, here comes the Germinal Soul. The system answered him that, of course, because she was a professional. Lin immediately used his fire technique against the bird's attack and didn't even give it a chance to die. The demonic beast king was greatly surprised and asked what was going on here. The head and his men also closed their eyes and said that it was a very scary aura. And the girl asked, is his younger brother still alive? Lin suddenly transformed from an old man to a young warrior with powerful abilities in a moment. The power of the Germ Soul peak martial power in the human world. Extremely terrifying. The demonic beast king asked, was he also at the embryonic soul stage? And saw that he was even stronger than him. The head and the other guys were shocked and even asked themselves, was this possible? Lin, the user of the Germ Soul power. And so, all these years, he had only pretended to be broken. Outwardly, he had become a mere mortal, but in reality, he had long ago and quietly jumped to the embryonic soul stage. And little brother Lin, he's the one in charge. The warrior also said that it was a Germ Soul stage, and there were only a few in the entire wilderness region. And now their Xuan Zong had such a master. The demonic beast king immediately began to address Lin as an honorable Taoist and said that what had happened was just a misunderstanding. So he decided to settle the differences with his sect and would pay a visit later on occasion. Lin replied to him that he had destroyed the foundation of his Xuan Zong sect, ruined many of its disciples, and was now calling it a misunderstanding. The system congratulated him on his first acquired power, and the system randomly bestows his divine technique of the Great Void Finger restraining the heavens. Is this really the same technique of Xiao Linzi? And told the bird that if he exterminated his entire clan and family, and then said it was a misunderstanding. The demonic beast king said that Dao's strength was slightly superior, but the difference wasn't too great, and Lin definitely wants to fight to the death. Lin replied to him that if he is not touched, he won't touch anyone. If someone offends him, he will destroy him. Especially to rise to the Germ Soul stage. He is a monster. He must have killed quite a few people. And there is no forgiveness for him. The demonic beast king listened to these words and said that they were humans. He was forced by himself, and now he would squeeze his inner pearl, but he would definitely kill him. Lin decided to use his strength in advance and finish this bird off. Inventing his anger told the bird that he knew his limits, and now uses against him the great wastrel finger that binds the heavens. Seeing the shell of Energy King was shocked by what he saw, and realized that he had already lost. And deciding to change things up, he started shouting at Lin that he would give him his wife and give up his tribe. And he just reached the germinal soul stage and doesn't want to die. But Lin didn't care about his words and didn't stop his attack and made it to the end. Feeling the fried wings, the rest of the king's warriors started shouting that the lord was dead and they should run away quickly. But Lin didn't want to just let them go and asked, where were they going to run to? And he released his bloody stage and covered them with mortal liquid. After the victory, Lin said that those stinking birds wouldn't bother Xuanianzong anymore. The head looked at the younger brother Yi and replied that this time they owe him everything, and asked for forgiveness, because before he thought that his abilities were destroyed and he was broken, and he did not expect that he would break through to the Zao stage of the germinal soul. But suddenly a girl came up to them and asked, what nonsense is this? Let them look at Yi's younger brother. Does he look like someone who has fallen in spirit? Zhao Dezhu, the head of Kangjian Peak, also replied that right. Junior brother Yi had always kept in the shadows, quietly guarding their sect. Lin immediately picked up on the fact that they were good, and they all had good imaginations. But it wasn't bad. He wouldn't have to explain anything. Suddenly, warriors came up to them and told the sect sovereign that there was trouble. The Fenglai sect suddenly seizes their minds and spiritual veins. There are many dead and injured among the disciples who were guarding them. The head was shocked by the news and replied that he couldn't believe it, although they already had strained relations with the Fenglai sect. But to dare such a thing, and without these spiritual veins, their cultivation paths would be interrupted and they would be doomed. And told junior brother Yi that he was going to lead the disciples to recover their resources. What does he say about this? Lin remembered that the Fenglai sect was one of the 6 major sects in the wilderness region. They had conflicts with him, and the fact that they attacked right now clearly meant that they took advantage of the monster invasion to strike. There's no limit to their cunning. The system immediately showed that a daily registration quest had been opened, and would conduct a registration in Fingqi's domain, and he would receive an unimaginable reward. Lin saw that he had a mission again. Still, he has the ability to meet forces and become stronger, and it's about time to attack their lair and start a massacre. Lin took it all in stride and said that they would go ahead with their plan, while he would go straight to the Fenglai sect and uproot them. The head replied with surprise that it was very good. Lin immediately went off to solve the problems. The head asked, how many years had it been since Xuanianzong was so strong? Zhao replied to the sect head that they had never been particularly strong after all. But now with the head of the Yi Peak sect, they might be able to become the first of the 6 sects of the wilderness region. At this time in the Fenglai sect, one of the guys was saying that he didn't expect it to go so smoothly. And luring that monster to Xuanianzong, they waited for the right moment to get their hands on all their spiritual veins. But the brother replied that with this way, they could soon become the sect head of the entire wild region. But wouldn't that monster attack them as well? The third brother asked the second brother, hadn't he heard? Today, a powerful guest from the Yuhua sect has arrived in the Fenglai sect, so there won't be any problems. The head of the Fenglai sect asked Elder Mu if it was true that his son Shen Xiao had excelled in the Yuhua sect and had already been accepted by a certain lord as a personal disciple. Elder Mu replied to Mr. Chen that he had come from Qizhou for this very reason. His son was noticed by Gue Yang, taught him the supreme Tao, his future is limitless, and said that it was excellent. It means his son has the potential to become an immortal. Another senior person told Mr. Sect Leader to accept his congratulations. Elder Mu immediately took out a gift and told Head Chun that here was the first-class Huayan pill that the head's son had asked him to give to him. Head Chen was surprised and said, Pill Huayan. People started shouting to congratulate the sect head. With this pill, he will surely break through to the germ soul stage. Head Chen rejoiced and said that his son had not forgotten about him. Today they have a double celebration then. Head Chen told Elder Mu about that monster and promised that he would settle the matter along the way. And he greatly thanks Elder Mu that if it wasn't for him accurately determining the level of that monster, they might have missed the chance to see Xuanianzong's resources. But after saying that, there was an unexpected explosion, and one of the warriors started shouting that someone had broken through all their protective formations. Lin stepped out of the smoke and asked, so is this the Fenglai sect? The head immediately asked him, who was he? Or was he already bored with life since he dared to break into the main hall of the Fenglai sect? Lin didn't hide anything and introduced himself and said that he had come specifically to their Fenglai sect. All the warriors were shocked and said what a powerful aura he had. And this is the embryonic soul stage. But the system told the host that he had arrived at the Fenglai sect's registration site, and it congratulated him, for he had obtained the seal of the Lord of Men and the Great Void technique. Lin rejoiced, for this was once again a familiar ability for him. Hetchin thought at this moment, is this guy really at the embryonic soul stage? And the Fonglei sect shouldn't have attacked such powerful people, although his name seems familiar to him. Hetchin asked the esteemed Taoist, what was the reason for his visit to their Fonglei sect? Lin asked him in response, are they pretending to be fools? The head of the soaring peak Xuanianzong. So they conspired with the monstrous king and attacked his sect's domain. As punishment, the Fonglei sect will cease to exist from this day forward. Hetchin said Yiling, so it was him. He was once caught off guard, after all, and all of his strength disappeared. How could he have advanced to the germ soul stage? And the head realized that since Lin was here, it meant that the Green Bird King had already been killed. And sweat like cursed Xuantianzong, Hetchin turned to Elder Mu and asked what they should do in such a situation. For as long as the Elder was with them, even if he was at the germ soul stage, they would crush him like an egg against a rock. Elder Mu called the guy a puppy and ordered him to fall to his knees, break his arms, and he would then leave his miserable life behind. And before he changed his mind, Lin asked the old man, who was he anyway that someone would bow to him? Elder Mu immediately showed his aura and said that the little guy was impertinent. The warriors looked at it and said it was the spirit transformation stage. And what an awful lot of pressure. The head also understood that if a master at the spirit transformation stage took over, Yiling of Xuanianzong was doomed. Hetchin started laughing and told Lin that last time he managed to survive, today he wouldn't leave. Xuanianzong will have no support left, and he will easily run him over after that. And now let him fall to his knees vividly and start begging for mercy, and maybe Elder Mu will leave him a whole body. But Lin didn't waste time and follow their instructions. He decided to show Tu what he could do. But Elder Mu saw that he was transforming into a spirit and agreed. On the Xuantianzong spiritual vein, the head and his team fought the enemies and finished off almost all of them. A Yuhua sect elder in the Fonglei sect? The enemy began to laugh and replied to him. What did he think? Without the patronage of the Yuhua sect, they would dare to capture their Xuanianzong so openly along with that monster. The elder had come to their Fonglei sect because many years ago, the hereditary head of their sect had entered the Yuhua sect in Qingzhou. Due to his outstanding talent, he had attracted a lot of attention. Although even he knows how they dealt with that monster, and he advises them to stop. Maybe then they will be allowed to stay alive and serve the Fonglei sect. But the head didn't talk to him further and chopped off his head, saying that there was no time. We must go to the Fonglei sect and rescue the head of Peak. Su asked with surprise, could the head of Yi Peak be able to resist the Yuhua sect? Zhao replied that it was impossible. The elders of the Yuhua sect are at the spirit transformation stage at the very least. Compared to them, their embryonic soul could be considered a mosquito. He would give his life if the Yuhua sect would let the head of Peak live. At this moment, in the main hall of the Fonglei sect, Lin started laughing at their words. Hetchin had told him that he was on the verge of death, and he was still laughing. And this boy seemed to have already become numb with fear in front of Elder Mu, who had reached the spirit transformation stage. With his pathetic abilities, he's not even worthy to put on Elder Mu's shoes. Elder Mu told him that he was a petty cultivator from the wild region, and yet he dares to be insolent in his presence? His Xuanianzong is no bigger than an anthill. To the Yuhua sect, he's just a speck of dust that can be easily erased. And he's nothing worthy of attention, and since he had already angered him, even if he kneeled down, apologizing, he would still destroy their Xiantianzong sect. Lin wasn't afraid of anything at this moment and told the elder to get started already and not stall. And the spirit transformation is just nonsense. If he's so cool, he'll challenge him to a fight. Whoever escapes, Elder Mu couldn't bear such humiliation and attacked him, shouting that the little guy wanted to die. Hetchin at this moment realized that after Kailing's death, the Xuanianzong sect would still be their prey. The system immediately said that a late-stage spirit transformation enemy attack had been detected, and now the passive effect of meeting strength is activated, becoming stronger, and obtained cultivation at the peak of the spirit transformation stage. Lin used his new techniques against the old man as well and asked, spirit transformation, and that's it? Elder Mu was shocked by what he saw and saw that his attack would do nothing. And it turns out the boy is also at the spirit transformation stage. Hetchin started shouting and asking how is this possible? Some pathetic Xuantianzong. And suddenly they have such a master? Elder Mu said that this Xuantianzong turned out to be incredibly treacherous. And in this poor wild region, how could a local cultivator who had reached the spirit transformation stage even exist? And still at its peak, even in the wild region, an embryonic soul is enough to become the founder of a sect and ensure its existence for thousands of years. But the spirit transformation stage never happened here. And this guy is still so young, but he's already reached such a level. But how is this even possible? Hetchin asked the elder, what to do now. Let him save the Fenglai sect. Elder Mu answered him not to panic. And let him not forget, he is from the Yuhua sect in Qingzhou. His methods of immortals are incomparable to his. Lin asked the old man, did he really think his technique was superior? And immediately showed him his middle finger mocking Elder Mu. Elder Mu got angry and shouted that this was nonsense. The level of their small sects couldn't compare to the greatness of the Yuhuang sect, and now he would show him the supreme technique of the earth, and applied his palm to the green tree. The warriors looked on with astonishment and said that they had nothing to say. The Yuhua sect does not wear its fame for nothing. This kind of land technique is power. Also, mortal level techniques, spiritual, mysterious in the wild region, a spiritual level technique is already a treasure. And this is earthly level. Elder Mu told the guy that dying at the hands of an elder was a great honor for a cultivator of his level. But Lin extended 2 fingers to the side and showing a stream of fire energy said that these were just minor tricks. And the old man still dared to brag here? Lin didn't waste any time and applied his seal of tabs and people, and completely destroyed Elder Mu's attack with a single move. And his strongest fire spirit appeared above him, destroying everything in its path with a single movement. People were shocked by what they saw and asked, what is this technique? Is it really higher than the divine level? And Lin continued to use his techniques and said that the imprint would shine over the land, and the Lord of Min was adamant. Elder Mu was completely exhausted. After all, this boy's strength is higher than him, and he wouldn't be able to handle this attack. Elder Mu started begging him to stop, and asking him to spare him. So what of the Yuhua sect? If they don't touch him, he doesn't touch anyone. And if someone offends him, he will destroy them. And they dared to attack. Elder Mu told him that if he died, his sect would be completely annihilated. And he, as the culprit, would suffer even more. Lin listened to his words and asked the elder, what else does he dare to threaten before his death? If that's the case, then let him disappear. Applying his fire arrow, he aimed it straight at the elder's body and finished him off. Hetchin had already fallen to his knees at this moment and was saying that everything was a misunderstanding. They were willing to submit and serve him. They would also follow the Lord and become his servants. But Lin answered them that they were unworthy even to be his dogs. Hetchin told the Lord that his son Chun Shao has the potential to become an immortal. He has already been accepted by the Yuhua sect as the Lord's personal disciple. Would he dare to offend him? Let him make no mistakes. Lin heard that his son has the makings of an immortal, then said, perfect. He repeats, if he is wronged, he will destroy the enemy. Their Fenglai sect was the first to attack Zuanianzong, and he had previously said that they would cease to exist today. And he always keeps his word. Lin didn't spare anyone in this place and decided to destroy every last house and people. Hetchin said that today's blood grudge would be avenged 1,000 times over by his son. Lin watched everything burn and saw a box fall from the fire. Lin said that he would then wait for his son to come and bring him more experience. But looking up at the sky, he saw a virtual nanny. The head and his team had already arrived on the spot and said that it was wonderful. Little brother was here. He had said he was going to destroy the Fenglai sect. The head took his hand and replied that he was incredibly lucky, and he had already heard that the Yuhua sect elder had arrived here, but he was somehow not affected by it. What about that elder? He had already killed him. The head was shocked and asked, did he destroy the elder of the Yuhua sect? He was at the spirit transformation stage after all. Su also told the guys, did they see him? She had said that Peak Head Yu was capable of handling it. The head asked, was it really true? Junior brother Yi has defeated the spirit transformation? Lin replied that actually, he was also at the spirit transformation stage, but they could do without words already, and it was time for them to rob the Fenglai sect and utilize the resources. The head replied to him that that was right. It was time to move out. The chapter now knows that little brother Yi is at the spirit transformation stage. Zhao told him that he had found a germ soul pill. It seemed to be from the Yuhua sect. Lin told him to give this pill to the sect head so that he would break through to the germ soul stage sooner. This would strengthen Zuanianzong. The head replied to little brother Yi that he was grateful to him. But suddenly, the system said that a suitable disciple within 100 li radius had been detected, and it seems to be the head of a demonic cult of the level of a true immortal. Let him accept him as a disciple and receive an unimaginable reward. And it was a disciple, and even the head of a demonic cult level true immortal. And if he went and challenged with his ability, he might immediately become immortal and become invincible not only in the wild region, but also in Qizhou. Su suddenly said that although they had managed to wipe out the Fenglai sect thanks to the Yi Peak head, but having quarreled with the Yuhua sect, did Zuanianzong still have any chance of surviving in the eastern region? The head replied that this was correct. The power of the Yuhua sect is so powerful that they, Zuanianzong, cannot compete with it. The head turned to Lin and said that his talent was incredible. He shouldn't ruin his future here. and it would be better to leave the eastern region. And when the Yuhua sect comes for answers, they will simply sacrifice themselves. As long as he is alive, Xuanianzong still has a chance to continue. Zhao said at this moment that the sect head was right. Su also replied that yes, Peak Head Yi, he is a born genius. His demise here will be a huge loss. The warriors also shouted that everything was right. And the head of Yi Peak would definitely be able to fulfill their hopes, re-glorify Xuanianzong's name, and make him famous everywhere. And they'll stay here, and they'll stay here to the last man, and they won't back down. And the heads of Peak E can be calm and boldly go to their destiny. Lin was greatly surprised that this sect had a powerful cohesion, and he said that he thanked everyone for their support, but let them be sure that if he had made up his mind, then he had thought it over, and let them leave the rest to him, and he will settle it as he pleases, for it is impossible to agree with them. And here he'll leave it to the head of the sect to deal with it slowly. He's got urgent business, and he has to leave now. The head saw junior brother Yi vaporized, and remembered that he winced every time, waved his sleeve and left without even leaving a cloud behind. Something unbearable was happening in the purple bamboo forest. The bandits were chasing the girl and telling her not to run away and let them enjoy her. But this girl turned out to be a guy and started yelling at them and telling them to get out of here. And he got tired of saying he was a man. But the decrepit old man was already drooling and still saying she was a beautiful girl and couldn't be a man. And don't even let her try to fool him. The guy already realized that indeed, the tiger had fallen into the plain and had been victimized by the dogs. And one would think that he was the head of the demonic cult of the central region, and he who had attained true immortality founded Manhwa, a gigantic sect with 100,000 countries and millions of followers. But his enemies joined forces with the forces of the Holy Lands and laid a full-scale siege on Manhwa. He had to sacrifice all of his strength to break out, and now he's hiding in this backwater eastern region, and yet he found himself in this position. The old man still called him a beauty, and said that if she didn't run faster, the old man was already tired of running after him and fired a few swords at her. But the guy immediately turned around and used a scarlet flame shield in response. But the old man's strength was greater than his, and this time his shield didn't work, and the guy got some injuries. But the old man was also surprised, because the foundation-laying stage was able to resist his 5 needles constraining source technique, late gold core stage. And is it really a young talent from a big sect who has gone on a wander? And it doesn't matter anymore, he has to deal with him first. The old man applied his technique and surrounded him with his energy, placing strange needles around him. Walking up to him, he called him beautiful again and said that was the end of it, and she had better give up. The old man grabbed the guy's face and calling him a beauty told him not to resist, for his patience was not limitless, and let him get over it already, and it won't take long. But the guy is already tired of hearing that he thinks he's a girl and has exposed his breasts. The guy started yelling at the old man to open his doggy eyes and realize he was a man already. The old man was shocked by what he saw and asked the guy, is he really a man? So he was running after him for nothing? And asked him if he looked closely. They're the same sex as him. And get him to stop running after him already. But suddenly the old man stopped him and said that a man is not bad either, and it's even better this way. But the guy couldn't stand it and used his attack technique yelling at the pervert not to touch him. And he even dares to touch men. And if the old man touched him, he would rather burn his inner jewel than grovel before him. The old man was greatly surprised and asked, what kind of technique is this? How can laying a foundation create such large-scale formations? But the guy's patience was already at its limit, and calling the old man a damn dog said he had finally pissed him off. Letting out a stream of energy at its limit, he aimed it straight at the old man and wanted to burn him alive. The old man, seeing such a thing in front of his face, was frightened and suggested to him that they talk things over. But the guy didn't want to talk to him anymore and brought his case to an end by trying to kill the old man. The old man couldn't even dodge and was hit right in the center of the stream. He tried to get out, but the chi was so strong that the pain was already at its limit. But the guy got hurt too and told the old man that he asked for it. What bad luck. His pearl is almost split because of this incident. And now he urgently needs to find a place to rebuild to think about next steps, and said that this pervert didn't die for nothing. He was definitely from an unusual lineage. But suddenly he felt someone's presence and asked who was here. But suddenly the old man came out of the forest and told the boy not to worry. He just happened to be here. He had nothing to do with that pervert, and his preferences are normal, so he can be cool with that. The guy replied that in that case he hoped to see him again someday. And now I'll see you soon. But the old man was again not of the simple kind, and with quick steps approaching the boy said that unlike that man, he was more interested in his secret. The old man tried to grab the guy and look into his mind. After all, he wants to understand why he has such powerful abilities, that he was an old bastard. And now he's taking advantage of the weakness of others. And he too will die a miserable death. But suddenly the guy fell down and thought that his rebirth would end here. A man who was stronger than all of them flew over them. And they immediately turned their attention to him. The old man immediately sensed the spirit transformation stage. And he didn't even know that there could be a master at the spirit transformation stage in this small eastern region. Lin decided to stop and look at them. The old man was immediately frightened and told him to spare him, and in return for his thanks gives it to him and leaves. But Lin didn't talk to him further and attacked him with a chi beam and said that such lowlifes didn't deserve to live. The old man didn't expect this turn of events and didn't even have time to see the beam pierce his heart, because first the Golden Core Master was caught, now the spirit transformation. And if he really couldn't escape his fate today, Lin asked the system immediately, did she mean to say that it was the head of a demonic cult? Oh, and a true immortal as well. The system replied that it was an ordinary weakling at the foundation laying stage, but the system replied that it was not deceiving. This person was indeed a true immortal and the head of a demonic cult. His power had simply weakened. So she decided to activate the Eye of Insight ability. After doing some analysis, it showed that this guy's name is Hong Qianye, and the initial stage of laying the foundation. And the talent is a divine fire king. Lin looked at all of his features and verified for himself that it was just like that. And its snow white skin, refined features, a lot of women would envy him. Anyone would mistake his gender. Hong was wary, for Lin was looking at him with that strange look, and thought that he too preferred men. But Lin realized that although he was now at the foundation stage, with his talent and experience, it would be easy to regain his former strength. Taking him on as an apprentice was a win-win situation. Lin told the guy that he can see that he has an exceptional bone structure. He's a real talent. He's taking him on as an apprentice from this day forward. And all he has to do is say yes. Hong was greatly surprised and asked the stranger, did he want to take him as an apprentice? And even thought that he was also after his secret. Neither his artifacts nor his luck could compare to what he had. And with his cultivation, his sect wouldn't even let him into the backstreets. And some stage of spirit transformation wants to be his teacher. It's even a little naive. And from the look on his face, he doesn't really want to be his student. Hong actually thought he wasn't worthy of being his teacher. But right now he didn't have enough strength to cope. And while he has a chance of survival, there's no need to rush. When he regains his strength, turn the situation around. He got down on his knee and said that Hong's disciple salutes his mentor. And to be a disciple of such a mentor is the greatest honor of his life. And he didn't care, because it was just an act of publicity, a mere formality. And when the time came, he would regain his lost dignity, and told his disciple that it was good and let him go up. From this day forward, he would call him Xiao Hong. Han actually didn't like the name, but for the sake of his salvation, he replied to his mentor that he agreed. And Lin noticed that this guy was too obviously hypocritical, but nothing. With his ability to meet strength and become stronger, he wasn't even afraid of his betrayal. The system appeared immediately and told the host that it congratulated him on his completed task. He was rewarded with an automatic training function. Seeing this, Lin had already decided that he could get stronger just by lying down. But the system didn't end there and said that he had obtained a coffin, which would be removed as the master level increased. And it was now a level 3 artifact. Lin thought that as far as he could remember, abilities and techniques had stages of mastery, and at each stage, the power effect could increase 10 times or even 100 times. The system said it was the ability to bury the heavens and earth. Also, the Master's Apprentice talent has been discovered. The system is offering a free upgrade package. And as a reward, the fire technique is rewarded with 3,000 flames, and another reward pill source of fire, and that is to restore the fire root and form an unrivaled foundation. Lin realized that this reward coffin raking the heavens was clearly designed to challenge the laws of the universe, and even wondered what kind of power he would achieve as he ascended to the next level. And these are the real rewards that a great traveler from the Celestial Empire deserves. And Hong saw that his teacher was proud of him, because he took such a talented student like him. And it remains to wait for his retribution, which is just around the corner. Lin asked him, hiding his emotions. He probably thinks his teacher is not worthy to be his mentor. Hong replied to his mentor that he misunderstood him. That's his usual facial expression. And he saw that the teacher only had a stage of spirit transformation and was already trying to teach him about life. Lin suddenly told the guy that it looked like he wouldn't accept his authority without a gift. So here's a technique for him to honor their apprenticeship. Hong accepted everything and thanked his mentor. But in his mind, he wanted to see what kind of nonsense this provincial master at the spirit transformation stage could offer him. Taking the book, he read its title, 3,000 Flaming Tribes. and he thought the title was too pretentious. But looking closer at the book and seeing the true name of the 3,000 flame tribes, he was shocked and wondered even how it was possible. He immediately realized that this raging fury flame technique, with which he had achieved immortality, was already considered a supreme fire technique of the central region. But compared to this 3,000 captive tribesmen, she was just trash. This technique completely turned his understanding of fire magic upside down. It was definitely an immortal-level technique, maybe even a legendary saint-level technique. Hong realized that with this technique, his strength would grow incredibly. Returning to true immortality no longer satisfied him. Judging from his face, he was happy with the gifted technique. Hong turned around and thanked him for the technique, and it was extremely useful. But he wondered how this mentor had gotten so lucky to stumble upon such a rare technique. But Lin didn't stop there and said that since Hong had mastered the technique, here was a pill to help him. Hong was shocked to see this and asked, "Is this a fire source?" Hong knew that the fire source was a divine pill for fire technique cultivators. It gave an incredible effect and was so valuable that even immortals were willing to fight for it. But how could some spirit transformation stage master get his hands on these things? Even in his best years, he couldn't get his hands on such things. Lin asked Hong if he doubted his mentor's gifts. Hong replied that he had no doubts whatsoever, and to be his disciple is the greatest honor for him. Hong thought that Lin didn't realize how rare these techniques and pill were. He must have accidentally found them in some ancient heritage, and one must now keep one's wits about him. But Lin saw that this demonic cult leader was constantly making things up as he changed his facial expression, and turned out to be a funny student. Lin told him to let Hong take the pill and he would guard him himself. The boy agreed and thanked his mentor. Hong immediately started applying the pill. After eating it, he immediately began to improve in his levels. Lin knew the stage of initial foundation, and this guy really is a true immortal recreating powers. Half an hour and he's reached the embryonic soul. And that's a very good start. Hong also couldn't believe that he had broken through so quickly. And once he returned to the central region, he would definitely wash away all his shame. Hong ran out and told his mentor that he must have disturbed him. Lin replied that it was no big deal, and it was time for them to go back to the sect already, and he would introduce him to his elders. In the evening outside Xuanianzong's main hall, people were saying that Peak Head Yi was incredibly strong, destroyed the germ soul with a single finger, saved their lands from complete destruction twice. And they were even a little sorry that in his time he had not realized his power and become his disciple. Now he would have been a disciple of Soaring Peak. Surely the standards for disciples are high, and even they are wondering, who is the right person for him? And at that moment, Lin returned home. People shouted that the head of Peaky had returned. And seeing another guy, they asked who was that with him? And they thought Hoon was a beautiful girl. The warriors couldn't settle down and talked about where such a beauty came from and why she was so close to the head of E-Peak. Hong immediately noticed that this cultivator clan was too weak. They weren't even fit to be servants in his Baihua. The head immediately met junior brother Yi and asked who was with him. Lin introduced them and replied that this was his new disciple. Let the disciple now greet the sect head. The head was shocked when he heard about the apprentice and made an incomprehensible face. Su was unhappy because the head of the peak had taken such a beautiful girl as a disciple. Hong couldn't take any more such insults and walked over to her and said he was a man. Lin didn't like it and slapped one on the back and told him to control himself. That's his big sister, and he should apologize immediately, and told her that he was apologizing and it was his mistake. And in his head, he told himself that he should be patient for a while, and when he reached the spirit transformation stage, he would avenge this humiliation on him. Lin suddenly came over and said that since everyone had met, he would take Hong to the Soaring Peak. The head replied that it was nice to meet you too and dared not delay. After they left, the head said that the peaky head had taken a nascent soul stage cultivator as his disciple. This is unbelievable. Asu replied that in one day, junior brother Yi had brought so much amazing news to Xuantianzong. Arriving at the peak, Lin opened the door and said that Hong was his first student, so he could choose any room on the peak. Hong was shocked and asked his mentor, "What kind of hole is this?" Even the servants' rooms in Baiho were 100 times more luxurious, and even thought that he would probably have to live in such a place. But Lin answered him to remember that only the weak whine, the strong learn to adapt, and the cultivator should be above such things. If it is dirty, let him clean it himself. Hong said that he would be patient. With his speed of development, things would soon change. A message came to the southern region of the Yuhua sect to the head of the Yuhua sect, who was apparently in a bad mood. In the Hall of Heirs, Jia Yang Zhongzhou was holding a letter that had been written on a blackboard, and from failure, he broke it with his own hands. The servant told the mentor that he was asking for forgiveness. He was the one who asked Elder Mu to take the pill to his father, and after Elder Su's death, he is worried that his father and his sect might be affected. He wants to check the situation personally. Gue Yin asked Xiao if he knew why he was taken as a disciple. The boy replied that it was because of his son's immortal body. In his immortality quests, Jia Yang said that was only part of it. The second reason was because he saw a huge ambition in him. His pursuit of power should not be limited by the ties of kinship, and there's not much time left before the apprentice competition. Let him defeat the other disciples and become the best, and the sect will increase support for him. This is his only chance, but he doesn't want to hear. He'll send men to the eastern region to check out the situation. His job is to focus on winning. Xiao replied to the mentor that he understood, and he would not let down his mentor's expectations. The next day on the soaring peak, Lin was resting and asked his disciple if he was ready. He had been waiting for him. Hong prepared the food and replied to his mentor that he was ready and would bring everything now. Hong noticed that the mentor only had food on his mind. And how can this spirit transformation stage master think about food? Yesterday, he was lecturing him about adaptation, and today he's enjoying himself. Lin started tasting everything and said that this meat, these beans, are marvelous and very tasty, and the spices from the system are just a masterpiece. Lin told his disciple to try it too and not to be shy. Hong replied to his mentor that he had long ago reached a state where he could not eat. Food no longer interested him. Lin was surprised and asked him, is he refusing a mentor? In cultivation, one must also enjoy life. Let him try a little bit of it. Hong replied to his mentor that he would only try it because of the insistence. But he could see that Lin was just an old type, and he didn't understand what was the big deal about food. But Hong tasted a piece, was delighted, and felt that it was an incredible flavor, and so delicious that he hasn't felt this happy since he was a kid. Lin saw his face and asked, why cry? Hong remembered that as a child he was always hungry, dreaming of tasting meat at least once, and when he first ate it, it was a happiness beyond words. But ever since he took the path of cultivation, he's forgotten what it's like to just live and enjoy the simple things. And the mentor was right. If cultivation deprived him of simple joys, Lin noticed that his disciple had broken through again. Embryonic soul initial stage, middle stage, late stage, peak stage, full spirit transformation level. And this guy even manages to make money on food. He's got an unbelievable talent. Hong opened his eyes and noticed that he was starting to break through again, and he didn't even know it himself. Lin told him, congratulating him on his spirit transformation. Now his strength was almost at the mentor's level. Hong didn't even expect the transition to the spirit transformation stage to happen so quickly, and it seemed like it was time for him to end this strange disciple bond. After all this, Lin told his disciple that he had eaten the meat, raised the level, and now let him come over and massage his shoulders. Hong was angry and was saying in his head that he was already at the spirit transformation stage, and he's still trying to boss him around, and some spirit transformation is trying to tell him what to do. And now the day has come when he's going to show his mentor who's who. After trying to attack his mentor, a servant suddenly came in and said that he had a report from the head of Peaky. The servant tells the head of Peaky that the sect head is asking him to go to the assembly hall. He says there is important business to discuss. Lin said with surprise, it's only been one day and already a new job? Hong was angry. After all, he missed such a chance. But Lin is always full of vulnerabilities. He will still have time to take revenge. Flying away, Lin told his disciple that he would go for now. And his massage technique is excellent, and as he returns, let him come and massage his feet. Hong shouted and asked his mentor how dare he treat him like that? And he should have killed him right now. In the assembly hall, people no longer knew what to do, and asked that it must be a sign that the heavens wanted to destroy Xuanianzong. Lin came down to them and said hello to the head. He asked what had happened this time. Was there some kind of threat again? The head immediately got down to business and replied that the matter was as follows. A few years ago, the Wei state fell under the protection of their sect. They had recently received a message from there asking for help. They reported that there are strange events happening all over the country where people are dying en masse. The corpses look gruesome, with blood completely sucked out of them. These phenomena are becoming more and more frequent, covering vast areas. Some cities with a population of 1 million people have become completely extinct, and he assumed it was the work of demons and sent his disciples there to investigate. However, none of them have returned so far. A new report came in that the situation has escalated, spreading to neighboring states. If this continues, the wilderness region will be in chaos. Their sect would lose potential disciples, causing it to weaken. Lin asked, is it that serious? Didn't anyone see who was behind this? Su replied that perhaps those who saw it are already dead. If the situation continued to develop, Xuanianzong might fall into disrepair, and the wilderness region is already poor in cultivators. Even the soul nucleation stage is rare here, and the Wei state is on its outskirts. What enemy was so powerful that they didn't even get an answer from the disciples? Suddenly, the system said for the master to find the source of the problem in the Wei state, and after completing it, he received an unimaginable reward. Lin rejoiced and replied to the system that he was just in time. Lin told the sect leader that he understood. And since the phenomena had started in the Wei state, it meant that the source of the evil was there. The head replied that it is very good. And junior brother Yi always acts decisively, and he is confident that he will do well, and is waiting for good news from him. Lin didn't waste any more time and immediately flew off on a mission. The head suddenly said that before he could even finish speaking, and Su was surprised that Peaky's head was so determined. Zhao suddenly asked, could he handle such a mysterious threat? Su asked him in response, is he doubting it? There is nothing in the wild region that can defeat a spirit transformation stage master. The head heard their conversation and said right. If he couldn't, the wild region would truly perish. And let them continue their training and fulfill their younger brother's expectations. Lin immediately afterward took Hong with him, and the two of them arrived at the eastern wilderness region, the border of the Wei state. Hong saw that after the meeting, the mentor went straight to this poor state. But he would still find a way to deal with him. As they entered the village of Tao while they stopped on a mountain, and Lin said that he thought bandits were robbing the village, and they need to intervene. The head of Taohua village told the respected hero that their village was poor. They have only chickens, ducks, cows, and sheep. And if the hero wants something, let him have it, but only he needs to spare innocent people. The head of the Black Wind gang started laughing and replied that he didn't need their animals. He only wanted them, the miserable little men. Stabbing the old man in the head, he ordered them to obey, and perhaps they would die without pain. The bandits started yelling to their own to move aside, because the head was using his technique. The gang leader used his terrifying technique and pointed it straight at the people. The people were very frightened and begged for someone to save them. Hong suddenly didn't expect this and said that he seemed to recognize this technique. In his mind, it was similar to one technique from the central region, but that person had died when he was destroyed by the Holy Lance. Lin saw his face and asked, does he know this technique? Hong replied that he didn't, and he just thought it was strange. And calling him a puppy asked him how he talked. Hong realized that if his guess was true and this was his job, they were in big trouble. People were panicked by what was happening and shouted that they didn't want to die. But Lin decided to intervene and grabbed the bandit from behind and told him to stop. The gang leader turned around and charging his fist asked, who was he? And how dare he interfere in his affairs? But Lin, seeing his fist attack, turned the other way and attacked him with a beam of fire. Lin told him to calm down, for they had something to discuss. The warriors of the gang leader were surprised, for he was a little hurt. The gang leader immediately sensed and told the guy that he was a master of the spirit transformation stage. And since that was the case, he asked him to spare his life. Lin ordered him to tell him where he was from. The gang leader replied that he was a guardian of the palace of the Wei state, but one day he saw something he shouldn't have. He was sentenced to death, and after that he ran away from the palace to escape. Lin asked him what did he see, and where did he learn this technique? The gang leader replied that he had noticed that the crown prince was secretly visiting the mountains behind the palace, but did not dare to check. And he got these techniques from a mysterious organization while he was on the run. Their origins were unknown to him. Lin asked, did they just train him like that? The ringleader looked at his men and replied that they had asked to use this technique to absorb people's blood to increase their strength, and he did it for the sake of survival. Doesn't know anything else. Lin thought for a moment and said, it seems like there is a huge organization behind this. Their actions might be related to all these strange phenomena. He asked Hong what he thought. Hong thought at this moment that the training methods were too reminiscent of one person. And is he really still alive? And why is he here in the wild region? But here he replied to the mentor that he didn't know, but actually realized that if that person was behind it, Lin at the spirit transformation stage wouldn't be able to handle it, and the Wei state would be the end of him. Lin suddenly decided to see if the bandit had told them everything. He used his technique to enter his subconscious. Lin looked at all his memories and said that he hadn't lied, but he hadn't mentioned something important. And now they needed to urgently go to the Wei Imperial Palace. But Hong decided not to leave any evidence behind, and used a finger attack and burned all the bandits alive. Seeing his mentor's face, he asked, had his student done something wrong? Didn't those bandits deserve to die? Hong had endured his humiliation for a long time. That venting his anger on someone was manna heavenly. Lin replied that he didn't, and he did well. The people also rejoiced and shouted that the two immortals who had banished the villains and carried out the will of the heavens would forever remain in the hearts of the villagers. At this time, the Wei Emperor said that the population of Wei had decreased by 1/3 in recent years, and his entire country would be destroyed by this darkness. and he even wondered if Xuantianzong's masters would be able to help them. The emperor's daughter ran in and said that she had seen two immortals. The emperor said that they must be masters from Xuantianzong, and let all the ministers go with him to meet them. As he stood above the city, Wei Ling asked his disciple, how did he feel about such a spectacular exit? Hong replied to his mentor that he was wise and it was impressive. He wished his mentor dead, and was ready to see how he'd fare if these forces found out about him. Just don't let him ask for mercy afterward. The emperor greeted them and said that he welcomed the masters. Lin introduced himself and replied that he was the head of Xuantianzong's Soaring Peak, and he has come to help them eliminate the threat, and they no longer need to be afraid. The emperor said that on behalf of the Wei family, he expresses his gratitude to them, and if they have any wishes, let them say everything. They will fulfill everything. Lin said for them to organize a resting place for him. The emperor replied that there was no problem, let them follow him, and he would show them around. At that moment, the scout was following them. The scout said that some head of Xuantianzong Peak, and he was just pretending to be powerful. And very well, they need sacrifices for his master to reach the peak of spirit transformation. And they came just in time. Arriving at his rooms, Hong saw that his mentor just now looked solid, but now so careless and lazy. How did he even reach the spirit transformation stage, he thought. And with this approach, he would soon overtake him in level, then it would be easier for him to eliminate him. And Lin realized at this moment that his disciples' cunning plans would turn against him sooner or later, and his biggest mistake is that he targeted him. And Lin told the student that he must be curious about his training. Have him bring water so he can wash his feet, and if he's comfortable, he'll teach him his methods. Hong got angry and asked him, what did he say? And thought that some master from a backwater place was trying to teach him cultivation. At one time, even immortals had learned from him. And speaking of mentoring, he's more like its progenitor. Lin asked the disciple, what is he worth? Does he not wish to cultivate further? And he is still young, and wants to further rely on his elders. Hong realized that he was the greatest head of the fire cult, and should wash the feet of someone like him. Maybe it was time for him to end this farce already. Suddenly someone knocked and said they had important information about strange phenomena in the Harmony State. Lin stood up and asked who he was. The guy replied that he was the crown prince of the Wei State, and his name was Zhao Hong. It concerns the fate of the entire country, and asks them to listen to him. Lin told him to come in, and what was his urgent business? When he saw the prince, he realized that he was the one who wanted to destroy those bandits. But he doesn't look like the one they said he was. Although, is he really like that? Prince Hong tells the immortals that there is one secret he has never told his father. He suspects that the source of evil in the Harmony State is connected to the mountains behind the palace. And recently, he had seen several flying demons sneaking into the cave at night. And the courtmaids and eunuchs have been disappearing a lot lately. And he thinks it's connected. And he has also heard of their glory and even knows that they are the only ones who can save the people of the state of Harmony. And asks them to destroy those flying demons in the mountains. Lin currently didn't feel any threat in the mountains with divine consciousness. This person was either lying or he had a defense that could pose a problem for him. Lin agreed and told him to show him this cave, and he would see what the prince was up to. Prince Hong thanked the immortal and told them to follow him. And with their help, they would definitely get rid of the evil in the state of Harmony. Hong also longed for him to die, and then wished to talk to him. Suddenly at night on the way, the girl saw them and recognized her older brother, but she knew that her older brother usually behaved abominably. Her father had warned him many times, but he didn't correct himself. He dared to secretly meet with the masters from Xuantianzong, and she must now urgently inform her father. Upon arriving in the mountains, Lin told the crown prince that this place didn't look like the abode of flying demons. The prince suddenly replied that they had come. Lin rejoiced and said that they would finally see what he was hiding here. Prince Heng replied that he did not hope to deceive him, but he did not expect him to fall for it so easily and come here. And he's too confident in his own strength and doesn't realize that there's always someone stronger. Heng pounced on him and asked if he wanted to stop them. Does he think that being the strongest master of the Xiantian sect is being a god? And now he'll see if he can do it. And this place will become his grave. Heng suddenly turned to an elder and shouted for them to act immediately. The elders stepped into the light and immediately applied the five-fold God sealing array. Suddenly, the blood cult elder told the Xiantian sect leader that he had become very famous recently. Dealt with the demon king of the soul nucleation stage. But in this five-fold God sealing array, even spirit transformation stage masters wouldn't be able to escape. Prince Hung told them to act already. As long as they don't kill him right away, their master needs him. But that girl in red, she just needs to be stripped of her powers. Hong immediately turned around and asked him, what did he say? And he didn't want to interfere, but he broke all boundaries. and he used firepower and swooped down to attack. Hung was shocked that Hong had destroyed the array in one blow. The elder said to the air prince, "Did the head of Xuanianzong Peak bring along a disciple of the spirit transformation stage? And his technique was clearly of a mortal level, otherwise it wouldn't be able to destroy their array." Hung became angry and was very angry with the elders. After all, he had hoped that they would bring his master glory. Hung decided to talk to the immortal and make a deal. After all, with his power, if they joined his master, a brilliant future awaited them. Hong was furious and asked, how dare he talk like that? And now he was going to make him suffer. Hong immediately attacked the prince who had set them up, and decided to burn him alive and not to let him bother them anymore. Hong couldn't even do anything against them, and was caught in the flames of fire that the immortal released. Lin looked at all of this and said he had hit a nerve. He told Hong to stop and not to kill him. He needed to ask a few questions. Hong accepted his mentor's order and turned off the fire at the snap of a finger. Lin asked him who his master was. How did he get him to serve him? Hong replied that his master was the greatest immortal from the central region. He has no equal and he must immediately submit to him. Otherwise, when he appears, the immortal won't even be able to beg for death. Lin asked with surprise, submit? Let the prince not even think about it, and they'll see how long their master stays in hiding. He'll start killing their men one by one. Lin used his attack beam, and using his power he killed one of his men. The elder was shocked and said that this guy was also at the spirit transformation stage. How could a sect from a wild region have two such masters at once? Here comes the second man. And again he killed him with the beam. After finishing everyone off, Lin said that only the prince was left. Hung was frightened and asked the immortal to wait. Suddenly there was a great explosion in the forest after these words, which could be seen from the end of the world. The daughter asked her father, "What is it? What a horrible bloody light." The father replied to the daughter to go there quickly, and he hopes the masters are okay. Hong immediately felt a familiar aura and realized that it was him. Although he could handle Yi Ling, meeting him was very unpleasant for him. Hong rejoiced and said that the master was finally here, and his time had already come. From the red darkness, the leader of the central region's blood cult, Stone Absolute, Lin asked him at once, so was he the one behind all these atrocities, masterfully pulling the strings? And he thought he'd just stay in his secluded hole. Stone Absolute addressed them as cultivators from the wild region and said that he recognized that he had some abilities, but he wasn't worthy of fighting him yet. But an old acquaintance standing there piqued his interest. Hong called him a blood demon and said he didn't expect him to still be alive. Lin immediately thought, what connects Hong to this type? The Stone Absolute walked over and asked with surprise. It hadn't been called that since it had been surrounded by the holy lands of the central region 200 years ago, and he hadn't expected to still remember it. Hong replied to him that those who had survived that great war would definitely not forget. He knew that it was a Stone Absolute, once the most powerful of the true immortals, increased his power by consuming the blood of humans, taught his dark techniques to others, spreading evil and causing untold misery, and then absorbed the energy of his own followers, appropriating all their power. His methods were so disgusting and his development so rapid that the major powers united to destroy him. Even he, the representative of the demonic path, was forced to participate in this war. His methods were so disgusting and his development so rapid that the major powers united to destroy him. Even he, the representative of the demonic path, was forced to participate in this war. Hung suddenly said that if this news reaches the central region, there will be a huge commotion. And the mentor is finally here. The guy started complaining and said that this woman wanted to kill him. But Stone Absolute didn't play with him further and used a laser eye attack to fry his brain. Hong saw this and said that he really is still the same disgusting blood demon. Even his disciples have no pity for him. The Stone Absolute replied that an apprentice was nothing. He can find another at any time. But if he wants him dead, he won't survive. Hasn't he realized yet how things are done here? Lin looked at them and said, now that's a different storyline. And there's so much drama. Hong said that he had seen with his own eyes how his immortal body was destroyed by the 4 divine artifacts, blood vaporized to the last drop. How was he able to survive at all? The Stone Absolute replied that those smug idiots, he had separated a drop of his lifeblood beforehand and hid it in a safe place. After his fall, that drop allowed him to be reborn. He finds himself in a similar situation. And now he's in urgent need of recuperation. And he's only in the beginning stages of spirit transformation. Let him surrender already, and let his blood fill his body, and then they would be together forever. Hong told him he was crazy. Even in the central region, he rejected him time after time, and he still wouldn't settle down. And he really thinks that a peak spirit transformation cultivator would be able to defeat him? Stone Absolute replied that the more he resisted, the more excited he became. For others, a battle with a difference in strength of several stages was still possible. But in his case, it was just a fantasy. Hong asked him how he even knew without trying it, and immediately applied the divine way of the 5 absolutes. Stone Absolute was shocked by what he saw, and used a bloody palm in response. Faced with attacks from both sides, there was a huge explosion that even they didn't expect such a turn. Stone Absolute thought, how is this possible? This fire is so powerful. That is, a cultivator of the initial stage of spirit transformation was able to shatter its bloody hand. And where did he get that technique, he thought. But Hong told him that the show was just beginning, and he used a fiery frost attack. But Stone Absolute was not frightened by such a thing and told Hong that he was only a loser. And in response, he used bloody soul absorption. Hong was so strong that his attack went straight into the enemy's body. Stone Absolute asked, what kind of fire technique is this? But he decided to act differently. In releasing his technique, he resolved the ice attack. Stone Absolute told Hoon that he was indeed the one he had once singled out. And did he really gain an incredible inheritance or become the apprentice of some powerful master during his escape from the central region? Hong replied that it had nothing to do with him. With this technique, he was on his way to reviving his glory in the central region. He understood that with the reinforcements of 3,000 flames, even someone like him, who had once held the entire central region in fear, couldn't handle him now. But he can't let it be known that he obtained this technique from a spirit transformation stage cultivator from the wild region. Stone Absolute said that if Hong let it develop further, even he wouldn't be able to control it. Of course it's a shame, but that's where it ends. And now he would learn the true power of his immortal body. In the city of Harmony State, people were screaming in pain and asking someone for help. And they couldn't die. At this moment, the Stone Absolute was pulling the strength out of their bodies. But in way Stone Absolute territory was filled with strength, and said it felt great. These people had become his food long before. If he wanted to, he could consume them instantly, increasing his power. Lin told Hong not to procrastinate and get it over with quickly. The disciple replied to his mentor not to tell him what to do. But Hong wondered how he ended up in this situation. He counted on Lin not being able to handle the bloody demon and asked him for help. Then he would honorably intervene. And now the situation is such that it looks like even he won't be able to come out of this fight unscathed. This is the energy of fusion. Stone Absolute remembered that relying on this body, he had once fought powerful cultivators of both the righteous and demonic paths, not yielding to them in any way. And even a few elders from the Holy Lands who used immortal artifacts were unable to completely destroy his immortal bloody body. His immortal body has recovered 70%. When he absorbs all the living beings of the wild region, he will reach his full strength, and then even the central city won't be able to resist him. He gave him a chance. If he got to this point, it's entirely his fault. Hong saw that the creep had reached the fusion stage, and now it was bad business. He immediately applied the violet flame that burned the heavens. Hong didn't slow down, and during the battle, applying an attack made Stone Absolute know what it was. Hong's attack was successful that even the Stone Absolute was injured. But the guy realized that fighting against a stronger opponent in such conditions was certain death. The only thing left to do was to burn the Dantian and fight to the death, and immediately applied a heaven-piercing golden flame attack and the fierce dragon flame. But Stone Absolute said it was useless. There was no point in trying to resist. His attacks were nothing more than a slight itch for his immortal body. Stopping Hong's attack, he charged his fist for a retaliatory one and said that this was the end. Hong saw that even his strongest technique was unable to injure him. What should he do next, he thought. But he didn't get discouraged and used his golden flame shield. But the Stone Absolute did not slow down and shouted for him to die. Stone Absolute threw strong punches and easily smashed Han's defenses. The Emperor had come to the mountain at this moment, and seeing them fighting, he was greatly afraid for the immortal. The girl asked her father, what kind of monster is that? How frightening. The Emperor thought that it was the source of the evil that destroyed the state of harmony. Even an immortal can't deal with it. Standing up on his feet, Hong thought, would his journey to immortality end here? He had mastered this technique with such hard work. But he can't just give up. And should he really ask for help from that damn Yiling? And to admit that he's worse than him is already shameful. He's only at the peak of spirit transformation, which is incomparable to the fusion stage. Is there anything he can do to help? Stone Absolute said that they, the cultivators, were striving for eternal life. Since he didn't want to continue the journey with him, he would die and become part of his body, and it would carry his will all the way. The Stone Absolute did not stop there and launched his strong attack. Hong thought by now that it was over. His mind is empty, and maybe it's just an instinct for self-preservation, or an attempt to grasp at the last straw. Hong immediately turned to his mentor and asked him to save him. Stone Absolute was shocked to hear about his mentor, and asked him, Did he really become someone's disciple? And suddenly Lin said that his student had finally realized to whom he owed his knowledge. Stone Absolute told Hong that he didn't expect that he had fallen to such a degree to become the disciple of some scrappy spirit transformation stage cultivator from the wilderness region. And this is a disgrace to the entire demonic path. Hong realized that although Lin was constantly using him, he was still his savior. But now that he stood up against the Stone Absolute, Lin asked if he could consider that the enemy was looking down on him. Stone Absolute replied that an ant doesn't know how high the sky is, and in due time, he could drown him with a single spit. Hong apologized to his mentor and said that he knew he was no match for the blood demon, but he still asked for help. If there was still something he could do, let him just run away. But that's impossible. And let him watch him kill him now, for the sake of his apprentice. Stone Absolute started laughing and asked the immortal who he wanted to kill. He didn't think he could even withstand a single blow. What was he even hoping for? He said that the immortal was just an ignorant upstart. Hong shouted to his mentor not to think about him. Just let him run away from here. It was already over. But suddenly the system said, detected that the host was attacked by an enemy on the initial fusion. Activated the passive effect of meeting strong becomes stronger. The level of the middle stage of fusion has been obtained, but Lin didn't talk for long, and applying his he easily destroyed the villain's attack. Stone Absolute was surprised and asked what was going on. How was this even possible? Spirit transformation cultivator. But after realizing one thing, he said that an immortal was not a spirit transformation cultivator. He too had reached the fusion stage. Hong was also surprised and asked, "What?" This guy was hiding everything so deeply, pretending to be a spirit transformation cultivator, and in reality turned out to be a powerful fusion stage master. No wonder he always provoked him like this. He relied on his power of the fusion stage, and he'd almost fallen for it. But it was also a very good thing that he didn't openly confront him then. The girl started screaming that the immortal looked so impressive. She wanted to be like him too. The emperor replied that his opponents are such a horrible monster, and even an immortal body, but he is afraid that it will still be hard. Lin felt it too, the same feeling of reaching the fusion stage. And it seems to him that with a single movement of his hand, the heavens and earth can be destroyed. Stone Absolute said that even if they were both at the fusion stage, the difference between his technique and Blueberry's was like heaven and earth. And now he would show him what real strength was, and let loose with the full attack of his body. But Lin answered him that he himself did not know what true power was, and he used the seal of the King of Men. Stone Absolute tried to touch his attack with a finger as he suddenly exploded in surprise. The enemy was greatly surprised and asked, "What?" But Lin asked, "Is this what he calls a difference in technique?" His human king seal had reached the mastery stage thanks to the system, and it was now much stronger than the first time. Stone Absolute asked, "So what of it?" He wouldn't be able to kill him anyway. He wouldn't be able to defeat him in a long battle, and his immortal body is really impressive. Sure is great. It's time to try out his new move. And applied a technique that had already reached the stage of perfection. And applied the finger of the Great Void. Lin said that one finger restrains the heavens and earth. The second finger destroys mountains and rivers, and the third finger destroys all living things. The fourth finger crushes the heavens. The Stone Absolute asked and said he takes it back. He really is worthy to fight him. And he offered to hide nothing more and decide everything in one blow. And applied blood absolute blood, rushing into the living springs, and released chi energy from all his limbs. But Lin had already decided what he would use against this attack and defeated his opponent with a single strike. Stone Absolute asked, who was he anyway? And why such monsters are found in this small wild region? And had the talents of the outside world become so strong in the time he had been away? Hong also noticed that his mentor was too strong. Against this technique, even 3,000 blazing flames would pale in comparison. No wonder he'd been so confident before. And it turns out, he just didn't think he was a worthy opponent. Lin introduced himself and said that he was the head of Cloud Dalpeak from Zuanianzong. Stone Absolute decided that this was impossible, so when he entered the wilderness region, he investigated. Even the head of Zuanianzong hadn't reached the spirit transformation stage. Stone Absolute said he would remember his name and applied his bloody way. Hong shouted that things are bad. He's trying to escape. If he manages to escape, the consequences will be catastrophic. Stone Absolute said he wouldn't be so careless next time and decided to vaporize completely. But Lin decided there would be no next time. And grabbing it, he began to hear Stone Absolute shouting that no, and he wanted it to be over. Lin realized that consuming human blood was a crime against all living things. and he needed to disappear from the face of this earth. Lin grabbed him completely, determined to destroy him on a 1-2 punch so he wouldn't hear anything about him after that. Hong looked at all of this and thought that the once foul blood demon that held the central region in fear had fallen by his hand. The emperor began to rejoice and shouted that it was wonderful, and the demon has been destroyed by the immortal, and his state of harmony was finally saved. All thanks to the immortal. Lin asked the system after the victory, where is his reward? And don't let it remind him. He calls himself a professional. The system replied to the owner that he had received the bone of the supreme, a mysterious bone with runes giving the owner's supreme innate power. And this is a gift for someone destined to become the greatest of the greatest. The system asked the master, should I link him to the master? Lin replied that the supreme is so cool, let him link it to him immediately, he can't wait. The system said that it was already starting the binding. Once the binding of the supreme's bone was completed, the host's strength would increase significantly. After all, the system has shown that the binding is complete, and she congratulates the host. Hong noticed immediately that this guy had done something again. The waves of energy emanating from him made him shudder, and he wondered what a great legacy he had received. Otherwise, a wild region could not have produced such an ingenious monster. And now, he must revisit his true strength. He must speed up his cultivation and reach the fusion stage as quickly as possible to be able to restrain him. The emperor approached and said that he was grateful to the immortal for saving the people of the harmony state. They would be sure to record this day in the annals so that posterity would remember the virtue of the immortal. Lin replied that there was no need for thanks. The main thing was to let him be a good emperor and take care of his subjects. That was the most important thing. The emperor replied that he would remember the immortal's instructions. But the girl suddenly asked if she could become Xuanianzong's disciple. She too wants, like him, to cast out demons and eliminate evil. Lin used his eye and looked at the abilities of the girl named Zhao Linger, and he noticed that she actually had a pretty good cultivation background. He told her that she has an excellent water spiritual root, and she's a good candidate, and if that's what she really wants, he might agree. The emperor asked with surprise, really? Let Linger thank the immortal sooner then. The girl said immediately that she thanked the immortal. The emperor replied to the immortal that he had saved the state of Wei and accepted her daughter as his disciple. And now let the immortal authorize, on behalf of all the people, to make a feast for him, and to give the two of them quarters in the palace for rest. Lin agreed and said that they would go. After a while, Hong grew up and shouted that his wounds had healed and his strength level had reached the peak of the spirit transformation stage. And ever since he started cultivating 3,000 blazing flames and taking elixirs, his speed of development has greatly increased. And the methods of the mentor are truly impressive. Even though he had saved him this time, the humiliation he had endured would not be forgotten so easily. And when he reaches the fusion stage, he will return it all double. And Lin only let him wait. The mere thought of him humiliatedly begging for mercy makes him tremble with joy. Suddenly Lin told Hong to come over to him quickly. Hong was angry, because it was starting again like last time. Lin told him to let him still thank him for calling him. This martial arts novel is quite interesting, and he thinks the locals also like stories about someone being humiliated and then they rise up. If he got into this world, he could make money writing novels. And to start with, the martial arts pick is sure to be a hit across the country. The author's pen name is Mad Potato. Hong at this moment thought, what is the mentor carrying again? And asked him why he was calling him out. Lin replied that he had already come, and ordered him to help him wash his feet. Hong was very angry and thought that even someone like the blood demon had fallen at his hands. Now is not the time to sever relations with him. We have to be patient. Was he neglecting his mentor? Let him come and help him wash his feet right away. Hong was angry and said that disciple wouldn't dare. In his life, he was never a fire cult master who had reached the true immortality stage, and more than 12,000 cultivators had fallen under his hands. And now he has to wash the feet of a cultivator from the wild region. Lin suddenly started saying that he was a good disciple, and thought that he had decided to reach out to him. Hong felt that this was the water of the Tai of boundless light, and it allows mortals to keep young and live for 200 years. And cultivators drinking it would purify their bodies of all impurities and drastically increase their strength levels. Even a small bottle of this elixir is sold out instantly in the central region. It's incredibly rare, and the mentor uses it to wash his feet. And now he's pretty sure he's got a huge legacy, or he wouldn't be so wasteful. And if he drank this water, it would be a huge boost to his cultivation. And then he realized that it was foot-washing water. What was that look on his face? Does he think his feet stink? Hong replied that he didn't. The disciple was just thinking about something else. Lin realized that the system gave out too much Tai boundless light water, so using it to wash his feet, and even with a massage from this cheap disciple, Lin suddenly told him that the water was cold and let him heat it up. Hong replied that it would be done now. Using his abilities, Hong stuck his hands into the bucket and heated the water with fire. Liner walked in and addressed the immortal. But Liner didn't care, for he was enjoying the moment of washing his feet. Liner was shocked to see this and immediately thought, "What's going on?" She didn't expect such a strange relationship between a mentor and a student. She didn't stop and ran out of here, for she was very much ashamed. Lin asked her why she was running away, but Hong interrupted him and asked his mentor if he liked the way he washed his feet. Lin replied that he liked it a lot, and how much he wished Hong was a girl. Otherwise, their relationship would be very different. Hong was very angry when he heard those words. He thought that he would become stronger, and he would die of fear. He only had a little more to suffer. Lin's ring jingled. He immediately said that it was a message from the sect leader to urgently return to the sect to discuss strategy. And it seems that an ancient secret world is about to be discovered in the wild region. And if Xuanianzong could benefit from it, their sect would definitely flourish. Lin asked in surprise, "An ancient secret world?" Hong replied that these places were full of cultivation resources that could change the destiny of a cultivator, taking him to a completely different level. He did not expect that there could be such a place in this poor wilderness region. He realized that such news would soon spread everywhere, and then chaos would ensue, but that was his chance too. And if he could obtain an outstanding inheritance there, with the combination with the 3,000 blazing flames, his strength would increase dramatically. Suddenly, the system said that there was a new quest. Let him complete the quest in the secret world of Tion and get an incredible reward. Lin told the system to clarify what it meant. The system replied that if it did, it would no longer be a surprise. Lin immediately told his disciple to get ready. They would visit the emperor and then return to the sect. Hong replied to him that everything would be done. Arriving at the emperor's palace, Liner told her father that she didn't want to leave it, and maybe she should stay. The emperor replied that it was not necessary. Being accepted into Xuanianzong is a great honor that many only dream of. She should treasure this opportunity and would not miss it. The emperor told the immortal that he would remember his instructions and will take care of the people and become a good emperor. And hopefully he will take care of his daughter. Lin replied that to each his own. She wouldn't be obliged in Xuanianzong, but how far she would progress was up to her. Lin told Liner to get up, and they were leaving. All the people started shouting their thanks to the immortal as they said goodbye. And she will be visiting her father. And at that time, in the Heaven Ascension Sect's True Legacy Hall, the head was saying that there had been so many events in the wilderness region recently. It is said that an ancient secret world will soon be revealed there. Also, the Wind and Thunder sect has been destroyed. The head of Xuanianzong peeked at it. Xiao asked, "And what kind of power level is this?" The head replied that judging from the rumors, it was a recently ascended soul nascent stage cultivator. Xiao asked with surprise, "The origin of the soul?" Killing such cultivators was like cutting up chickens for him. Xiao asked the teacher. The head replied that it was still unclear, but all the evidence points to Xuanianzong. The problem is, could this insignificant sect have killed Elder Mo? They are only counting on this head of the peak of the cloudy distance at the soul nucleation stage. Xiao said that it turns out someone else is the killer. But in any case, Xuanianzong must be destroyed. And this head of the cloud Dao Peak who killed his father must surely die. The head replied that just in the wild region, an ancient secret dimension had appeared. The sect would send some elders there with him. And let him remember, he represents the Celestial Ascension sect. He will have to fight other great powers. He can think about revenge afterward. He hopes Xiao will prioritize his priorities correctly. Did he understand? Xiao replied that the disciple understood. The head had a plan, and holding the green pill said he must continue to show his strength. And with the resources he won in the Great Sect competition, he has a chance to break through the bottleneck of the Great Completion stage and reach the Transition stage. Then both of them will rise to a new level. In the heavenly world, a cultivator of the Spirit Transformation stage is called a Divine Lord, and a cultivator of the Fusion stage becomes a Heavenly Lord. And a cultivator who has reached the stage of great completion is called an honorable or supreme. And at the stage of transition, he already bears the title of illusory immortal. If he even touches the title of an immortal, he can already dominate the region. And the wild region, the most backwater and uninteresting part of the eastern region, suddenly attracted everyone's attention because of this ancient secret world that carries the possibility of immortality. A group of people were heading for the peak, and one of them was saying that they were just lucky. Fortunately, the cultivators of the wild region are extremely weak. This was the kind of opportunity they would definitely miss. But he was told that the wild region was called the most backward place inhabited by barbarians. How could there ever be an opportunity to become immortal here? The third guy said that they also needed to hurry. Once the Heaven Ascension sect arrives, there won't even be a crumb of booty left. A very large number of people gathered in the eastern region, the wild region, outside the ancient secret world. One of the elders said that this time, the discovery of the secret world had already attracted 4 of the 5 great sections. Only Xuanyi and Zong had yet to appear. They decided to give up the fight, but the warrior replied that it was unlikely. After all, they had just absorbed the Wind and Thunder sect, and thinks they already intend to become the main sect among the 5 great sects of the wilderness region. The Moving Mountain sect elder Ouyang Feng started laughing and said that he had been in seclusion for a long time, but did some Xuanyi and Zong already dare to outshine his Moving Mountain sect? The warrior immediately turned around and asked, "Spirit transformation?" The elder said that he thought that even having 2 soul nascent stage cultivators would make Xuanyi and Zong a leader. But who would have thought that a spirit transformation cultivator had appeared in the wilderness region? All the warriors stood together in formation and began to say that they saluted the elder. Head Feng said that he didn't expect to come out of seclusion and immediately catch the appearance of an ancient secret world. This is a sign of destiny, and this secret world will be the first to come under the control of the Moving Mountain sect. And does anyone dare to object? The elders immediately realized that since Feng had reached the spirit transformation stage, he was now rightfully considered the strongest person of the wild region. All the servants said they were obeying the Divine Lord's command. Long life to the sect lord. The warriors asked, since a spirit transformation cultivator had appeared, who would dare to argue with him now? The warriors said the temple of the battle sky is here, and the barbarians of the savage region, let them get out of here. But the Heavenly Lord Empire, the ruler of the southern borders, had already arrived at the place, and he was at the late stage of spirit transformation. The chief asked, "The wild region really has a spirit transformation cultivator. What other spirit transformation is there?" There were already hundreds of them here. He had broken through the spirit transformation stage with such difficulty and had become one of the key figures in the past 10 years in the wilderness region. It's not even considered something significant. And turning to the esteemed Taoist, said that he was an elder of the Moving Mountain sect, and could they just call him Xiao Feng? But the warrior asked him, isn't he ashamed? Does he also want to appear young? Tell him to get out of here immediately and keep his mouth shut. No one gave him the floor here. The elders also said that the barbarians of the savage region, even if he achieved spirit transformation, he would remain a pathetic brat, and still thinks he can compare to him. Feng told the esteemed Taoist that perhaps the conditions in the wild region were harsh, but the inhabitants here were not inferior creatures. And why should they, spirit transformation stage cultivators, just accept and let them trample on them? He realized that his disciples were looking at him hopefully. If he got scared now and just backed off, the wilderness region would have no future. Head Feng got angry and said that the wild region is poor, but why not fight? Whoever disagrees. The elders got angry and said that he was a cheeky old man and probably looking for death. So they all got together and decided to kill the old dog. But the chief stopped them and said that this old man was just a cultivator from the wild region. If they attacked in a crowd, they would be laughed at. Let him disgrace himself, but with one hand suppress him. And now the old Pesh would see how weak he was compared to them, and used his palm attack. But Head Feng was not confused and did not leave, and used his attack to shout for him to die. The old man's attack was so strong that enemy didn't even realize how he had the attack blocked. The enemy realized that it looked like he had underestimated him. Feng asked, was this the best he could do? The enemy was greatly angry with him, and after pulling out his weapon he immediately attacked, and said that he was an ungrateful old man. Feng was unable to block the attack, and was badly injured after his opponent's attack. Said he would fight him alone. And now he's breaking his word. And now he is an embarrassment to the entire eastern region. But to die for honor is a worthy death. And he has only one thing to say to him. The cultivators of the wilderness region must not be humiliated. The chief of the eastern side said then he would fulfill his wish. But suddenly a seal went off near him, and he was shocked that he even heard someone say it was a busy place today. The warriors said that it was the abbot of the heavenly temple of the Buddhist province, a golden Buddha master. And behind him is young Master Tian, and the heir to the first cultivator clan of the Ice Ocean. The head also felt a terrifying pressure coming from them. They had both reached the stage of fusion. That means the savage region will never win. The Heaven Ascension sect also came from the Jade Gorge province. Now all the strongest sects in the eastern region are here. The warriors were surprised and started shouting that it was the holy son of the Heaven Ascension sect, Shen Xiao. He had heard of him. He possesses the body of a solar immortal and is considered invincible among his peers. He will become the brightest star of the eastern region. In the next 100,000 years, he will write a new legend. The chief of the East asked, Wasn't he the crown prince of the Wind and Thunder sect? He's from the wilderness region. He realized that the wild region was the place that caused him to suffer continuous humiliation in the Heaven Ascension sect. One of the elders attacked and said that the holy son of the Heaven Ascension sect was not the kind of figure that the pathetic ants from the wild region could discuss. And whoever talks unnecessary talk. The chief of the wild region walked over and told Xiao that there was no need to smear his hands on these lowly cultivators, and let him deal with them. Xiao replied to his man to do what he himself wanted to do. And head Zantianzong also arrived at the place and said that just as he thought, it was worth it for the secret world to appear, and the son of the late Elder Mu of the Wind and Thunder Xiao sect would appear. Zantianzong didn't rush headlong into this chaos. Xiao told the leader that while they were fighting for resources, maybe they would leave the wilderness region and lay low for a while. Su replied that everything depends on younger brother Yi. He is Zantianzong's last hope. But where is he himself? Unexpectedly, the head shouted that it was junior brother Yi who had already gone there. And Xiao is also located there. Isn't this a suicide? Head Feng saw Lin and said that he was a young man from Zantianzong, and asked him not to be reckless. Lin said that these upstarts have gone wild. Without him, the wilderness region is doomed. Let everyone stay where they are and don't move. Xiao asked, who's coming? Let him give his name immediately. Lin introduced himself and replied that he was his father's killer. A guy from the group hearing his name asked, isn't that the Soaring Peak Lord of the Xiantian sect? But someone answered him that he was only at the stage of soul gestation. Xiao, hearing from where Lin was actually furious and couldn't even control himself. What's with the unbridled rage? Does he have a case against him? Xiao asked, did he kill the patriarch of the Wind and Thunder sect? What's he on about that underdog? He remembered the patriarch always saying that his son had the potential for immortality. Xiao was furious and couldn't even say anything. Anger overwhelmed his mind. But Lin didn't stop and said that he was the offspring of that idiot. Xiao got angry and told him that he would kill him. But suddenly, the servant turned to Saint Chun and asked him to let him capture this madman and deliver him into his hands. The warrior told Lin that he was a brat who dared to disrespect a saint, and now he can take it out on himself. Hong stood up to Lin's defense and was ready to fight this warrior. The warrior looked and asked, where did such a beautiful girl come from? But Hong didn't talk to him anymore after hearing him call him a girl. He immediately attacked with his fire attack and used a flaming virtual ripple, but the warrior was shocked and a bit confused. After all, Hoon's attack had completely burned him alive. The elder asked afterwards, a spirit transformation stage cultivator died just like that? Head Feng asked, when did such powerful cultivators appear in their wild region? And he even called himself a pioneer in this wild region. But here it is, new peaks hide behind the mountains, and unknown heights stretch beyond the sky. Hong walked up to the mentor. Feng was shocked and asked, is this the female disciple of the Soaring Peak Lord? But who claimed that the Soaring Peak Lord was at the Soul Nascent stage? How could a cultivator of the Spirit Nascent stage have a disciple of the Soul Nascent stage? And I guess the Xiantian sect turns out to be so powerful? The head walked over to Junior Yi and asked if he realized what he was echoing. This is the Heaven Ascension sect. Let him run away, and they will detain them. Zhao also said that yes, as long as he's alive, the Xiantian sect has a chance to revive. Lin replied to the clan head not to be alarmed. He's fine. Let him allow the new apprentice to be introduced. Lin walked over and said that she welcomed the elders. Lin replied that after solving the Harmony Realm's problems, he had found a promising maiden daughter of Emperor Wei, with a root water soul of the highest quality. For the peak of heavenly fragrances, Lin walked up to Su and said that she welcomed her mentor. Su immediately noticed that this little girl was the true embodiment of spirituality. But Xiao didn't leave it like that and shouted to Lin not to look down on him. Lin and everyone from Xiantian said they will pay with their lives for his father, and Lin would naturally suffer for a long time. Lin asked him, is he going to compete with him? He's not even worthy of that. Lin immediately ordered Hong to head after him and teach him humility, and Hong thought he was like a dog off the chain. He wasn't a mutt. He immediately ran after them. Xiao, seeing Hong, called his mentor a coward and said that he himself was afraid to face him. Hong looked at him and replied that it did not require the intervention of his mentor to fight him. With such strength and beauty, why should he languish in a miserable sect? Let him accept their offer, and the Heaven Ascension sect would bestow supreme favors upon him. But Hong replied that he wasn't interested. Xiao called him a girl and asked if he refused to even think about it. Hong replied that his mentor was right, and Zhao's father was an idiot, and his son is a double idiot. Xiao listened to her and said that since she refused the treat, let her get punished, and immediately attacked him, releasing a whirlwind of fire attack, directed it straight at him. But Hong didn't hesitate and used his meteoric flame. Hong withstood everything and repelled his attack with ease. Xiao asked with surprise, what? He had destroyed his technique? Xiao answered him not to get excited. Ahead of time is just the beginning. Xiao drained all of his strength and decided to show what he was really capable of, and used the solar deity's fist. The head spoke at this moment that the Holy Sun was truly endowed with a divine gift. His supreme celestial rank technique, harmonized with his solar immortal body, was so powerful that it could destroy even a spirit transformation stage cultivator. And if the enemy had reached the fusion stage, they would undoubtedly suffer significant losses when facing such perfection. Xiao said after his strong attack that he had asked for it. And at the moment of the counterattack, there was an explosion. All the people were shocked by what they saw. And Xiao was already glad that he had finished off Lin's disciple. But looking closer after the smoke, he saw the whole face of Hong, who had stayed alive after such a strong attack. Xiao was shocked and shouted that it couldn't be. He doesn't believe it. He was born to be immortal, and he is invincible among equals. But Xiao didn't stop at just that, and continued to further throw his punches and finish the job. But Hong said the frog, all the anger he's accumulated because of Yiling, he'll unleash it on him, and let him know the true humiliation. But Hong was stronger than him, and continued to launch his counterattacks, and destroyed this Xiao like two fingers. Why did all his attacks dissolve as if hitting absorbent cotton? No effect happened, and is he really weaker than her? Xiao said that he had not seen such martial prowess among the cultivators of the Heaven Ascension sect. How could a pitiful sect cultivate such a disciple? Hong replied to him that he was just a weakling, and that was all. The elder shouted to the Holy Sun not to hesitate. He is the chosen hero of the Heaven Ascension sect, born for immortality. Xiao suddenly said that he is a Holy Sun born for immortality, and released his chi again, saying that he was not yet defeated, and used his solar immortal body and told him to awaken, and used the initial divine eclipse technique, and channeled it directly into Hong's body. But Hong wasn't afraid and said it was child's play, and he would show him the true meaning of the words invincible among equals, and he will show him the difference between the two, and used the 7-colored flame attack, and released whatever was inside of him. Headphone was surprised, and said that this guy had such a level of strength. Is he really only at the spirit transformation stage? The elder said that power, and is it really capable of destroying even someone who has reached the fusion stage? And I even wonder who will win in the end? But after seeing Xiao fall to the ground, people started to say that it was the Holy Son of the Heaven Ascension sect, and Hong asked them how a spark dared to rival the radiance of the full moon. The head also saw this, and said to his elder brother that his disciple was too strong. Zhao also replied that although he had defeated Xiao, the Heaven Ascension sect still had many elders, and they had better leave soon. Lin suddenly joined the conversation as well, and told them not to worry. There was no need to worry about it. Seeing his disciple, Lin told Hong that he had an extra dinner waiting for him tonight. The student replied that he was grateful to his teacher. Xiao was shocked and said that he had lost. But suddenly someone turned to him and told him to turn around. Xiao told the fire elder that he had lost. He is invincible in his realm and has dishonored the Heaven Ascension sect. But the elder actually didn't expect the Holy Sun to be defeated by a wild region disciple. His Taoist heart was shaken. If this continued, the reputation of the Heaven Ascension sect would be undermined. The elder told the Holy Sun not to think too much. He has a great future ahead of him. He was born to become immortal, and they must strengthen his Taoist heart and destroy these barbarians from the savage region to restore the greatness of their sect. The elder began to cry out that to insult the Holy Son of Seti of the Heavenly Ascension, there should be retribution for this. And he asked, who will go and destroy these barbarians? Suddenly, someone from their sect said that he would go. The warriors began to say that as expected, the Heaven Ascension sect had deep roots. This time they had sent 9 fusion stage masters. Although this girl defeated the Holy Sun, he is only at the spirit transformation stage. In front of the fusion masters, such a waste of talent, such a pity indeed. Hong saw that someone was attacking them and asked, should he accept the fight? Lin answered him not to worry, and let him leave him alone. He'll deal with him himself. People seeing this began to say that the head of Soaring Peak Lin had already reached the fusion stage. But the chief said that he thought that the disciple of the head of Soaring Peak had already shaken him up enough. He turned out to be that head Heavenly Lord himself. And he was still boasting, calling himself the first in the wild region. The warrior asked him, merging, so what? Did he really think he could compete with him? And insult the Holy Sun, barbarians from the savage region, must die. And unleashed a flurry of his attacks. But Lin didn't even twitch from his seat and asked him, is he joking? And passing through the opponent's attack, he found himself right in front of his enemy. But Lin didn't look at him for long, and used his foot attack and charged straight into his chest. Lin looked at it and asked, "Is that it?" He too did not expect that after binding with the Supreme's bone, the physical strength would become so terrifying. Now he could crush anyone at the same stage using only the natural strength of his body. The elder ordered his men to all attack him together and finish him off. The warriors all immediately surrounded him, but Lin wasn't afraid and applied the seal of a human lord. All the warriors couldn't resist him, and they didn't even touch his body with their fingers. The warriors were all wounded, and one of them asked, "What kind of divine ability is this? And this guy is too powerful. And let everyone use artifacts to destroy him." One of the warriors used the Jade Serenity Immortal Sword attack and unleashed one attack altogether. But Lin wasn't scared of them and just stood still and waited for their attack to reach him. But the monk said that this is a violent joint attack, and may the Buddha make this man reach imminent doom. The warrior saw that this bald Hanja is outwardly full of mercy, but behind his back, he does things that even he despises. Still, he and the monk agree. Moments like Yi Ling should die as soon as possible. The clan head shouted and said that Head Yi was in danger. Zhao also replied that he said he should have run away at once. But Su told them that they didn't understand anything. Hong realized that after what he had seen in the Harmony State, he no longer had any doubts. He was definitely hiding something else. And now they would see what else he was hiding. Lin started laughing and replied that since that was the case, let him try it, and applied one of the divine ability of the upper bone. Everyone was surprised to see his attack and asked what was going on. And what kind of energy is this? Lin didn't stop there and used the divine punishing radiance next, and directly engulfed them all together. All the warriors were defeated and badly wounded. They didn't even know what to counter against the enemy. They even asked the Fire Elder to save them. The Elder said that he didn't expect this guy to be so troublesome. The Holy Sun is already badly injured. If their elders also fall, how will he report to the sect? He decided to act on his own and immediately attacked from the ship. People said it was the 3-star spiritual artifact of the Fire Elder Buddha Tower. This is his greatest weapon now they are saved. The Elder used the Buddha Tower attack and said that this was where it would end, and their enemy would die. Lin also rejoiced in the moment, for this was the one he had been waiting for. The system immediately came out and said that a collision was detected with a fusion stage peak cultivator, and even the passive effect is activated. He becomes stronger, meeting opponents stronger than himself, and the power of the full fusion stage is obtained. The Elder tried to get closer to him, but he couldn't and used his attack every time. But Lin always repelled them. The Elder was shocked and asked, had he been hiding his power all this time? But Lin didn't answer anything and released a stream of energy at him. The Elder told the Elder that today's incident, they admit defeat. The Celestial Ascension sect voluntarily gives up fighting for the secret world. Lin got angry and told them that they came when they wanted to and decided to just leave. The Elder replied that the fellow had gone too far. Isn't he afraid of the wrath of the Heaven Ascension sect? But suddenly, he thought for a while and said that now he was clear. And so, that Elder moved from the outer court. He too died at his hands. Lin told him that was right. Since he had already made enemies, why not kill a couple more for fun? Without even leaving even a chance for the Elder's life, he burned him alive and didn't even let him say anything last. The warriors were shocked and asked, how is this possible? This barbarian from the savage region had destroyed the Fire Elder of the Heaven Ascension sect with a single movement of his hand. The Elder saw that the Elder had also fallen. Xinjiao's Taoist heart has been destroyed. The reputation and strength of the Heaven Ascension sect would suffer great damage. Looking at the monk, he saw that now the real show would begin in the eastern lands. Xiao was also angry. After all, even the Fire Elder couldn't handle him. Is his father's killer really that strong? Will he ever be able to take revenge? The warriors started yelling that things were bad. The elders are in trouble. Tell them to take the Holy Sun and leave, and activate the golden ship. Hong got angry and asked them if they were just showing off and decided to run away. But he didn't give them a chance to escape and shot flames into the ship and shouted that they would all die. The warriors said that they had first killed the elders of the Heaven Ascension sect, and now they were going to kill the Holy Sun as well. They decided to eliminate every last one of them. And this mentor and apprentice are just crazy. But suddenly, in a moment, a monk stood up to defend the ship and used his palm. The monk addressed him as a young mistress and asked when would this endless cycle of vengeance stop? Why do they want to exterminate them to the last? Hong replied to the bald monk not to think that he doesn't see their Buddhist tricks. By saving them now, he wants to make the Heaven Ascension sect feel indebted to him. The monk told him not to utter false words. His bias towards Buddhism is too great, and they are already showing signs of falling into the demonic path. He would advise them to hold on. Hong replied that when he was in the central region, He despised people like the monk the most. They do everything for their own gain, but they cover themselves with virtue. And even if he changes to the demonic path, he doesn't need his guidance. The monk decided that in that case, he would let him instruct him in the way of the truth. Hong felt that this old monk was pressing with incredible pressure. He was clearly at the peak of the fusion stage. But suddenly Lin stood in front of the monk and asked, had someone decided to offend his disciple while he was busy? The monk replied to mystery that he was mistaken. He only wanted to give a little guidance to his disciple. Does the monk think he is worthy to mentor his disciples? Hong thought the same thing as instructing a reborn stage true immortal. To him, a mere monk at the fusion stage. Hong said he was grateful for the help. His disciple was intent on holding up their ship, but that old bald monk thwarted him, and they were able to escape. The monk replied that he merely thought it had gone too far and decided to intervene to smooth things over. If Mystery thought otherwise, he had nothing to say. Lin suddenly asked, did he decide to show off and run away? Let him stop since he had already started acting like this. The monk asked Mystery what he meant. He understood that the Soaring Temple is one of the strongest Buddhist orders of the Eastern region, and he has just made enemies in the Heavenly Ascension sect, and he thinks he has the courage to antagonize them as well. Lin said to the monk that he had a knack for cunning combinations. He did nothing, but managed to create a huge debt of gratitude for himself. I left all the dirty work of the future to him. If he's so prescient, why doesn't he predict the date of his death? The monk replied to Mr. Yi that his words had gone too far. Lin had already used a fire attack and asked so what of it, but the monk did nothing and applied the golden bell. But his defense was weak and was injured after Lin's attack. The monk straightened his posture at the moment of the fall and steadied himself, and told the mentor that the immortal was mocking them. Does he really think that the Soaring Temple is a weakness? The mentor replied that since Mr. Yi was so persistent, let him not blame him for being cruel then. The Golden Buddha mentor used the Dharma Buddha image against him. But Lin looked at all this and did not do anything immediately. The warriors had already said that it was a Buddhist great manifestation technique, and he's holding a 3-star 9-ring iron spiritual artifact, and that Lin has gone completely crazy. He had already angered the Celestial Ascension sect. Now he wanted to make enemies in the Buddhist orders. Is he just sick of living? Mentor told Mr. E that he gave him a chance, but he was too stubborn, and now he's going to calm him down. The monk raised his weapon into the air and used a resolution attack. But Lin stood still and replied wondering. Lin told him to let the monk already do her thing, and used the heaven burial casket and stopped her with one hand. The monk was a bit surprised after all this, and he didn't even understand how the immortal had done all this. Lin noticed that as his level increased, this coffin evolved from a 4-star artifact to a 6-star artifact. Lin told the monk that his divine ability was all he could do, and sent everyone inside. The monks were shocked and asked, "What is this?" and shouted to the preceptor to save them. The monk's mentor was shocked and considered him a cursed evil. There was a wicked man lurking in the Xian sect. The monk has told his allies that this man is a heretic, and let them destroy him immediately. The others were already thinking, would anyone take the risk? And Hong realized that he knew that was how he knew his mentor was still hiding something. The monk told Mr. E that they are already at enmity with the Heaven Ascension sect. Does he really want to make an enemy of the strongest Buddhist order in the Eastern region? Lin replied that what annoys him the most is hypocrites like them. He has absolutely no limit to who becomes his enemy. His principle is to destroy hypocrites. And with a wave of his hand, he told the monk to stop talking and go to the coffin immediately. After closing the monk in the coffin, he lifted him up with one hand and asked, "Who else wants to attack?" The clan head shouted that Brother Yi had done an excellent job, and he had done a great job. Zhao also asked, "Is he asleep? Someone let someone punch him." Su immediately granted his wish and punched him in the face. Zhao asked her little sister why she was oodling him. Su asked, "Does it hurt him?" The boy replied, "Of course it hurts." Su said that means it is not a dream. The elder couldn't believe it and asked, "Did the wild region really win?" It was certainly unbelievable that he was able to suppress everyone single-handedly, and everyone started shouting together that they were welcoming the Heavenly Lord. The enemies thought it was surely still a wilderness region. They definitely didn't have the wrong place. They had assumed that Yi had only defied fate 3 times, but how wrong they were. And he not only shook the greatest sect in the Eastern region, the Heavenly Ascension sect, to its foundations, but also turned a Buddhist temple clergyman to ashes. But now he has made mortal enemies, and retribution will be merciless. And if he can further unsettle the Eastern region, it will only be to their advantage. Their Shui clan would be able to benefit greatly. Suddenly, a huge beam descended from the sky. The warriors began to say that this is great. The secret world has finally opened up. It was the first time he had ever seen such a majestic sight. Lin saw that he had rejoiced, for now it was only enough to go inside to complete the task. But first, he had to deal with the remnants of the hostile sects that had come. Lin said that everyone who belongs to the wild region has the right to enter and explore this world. And the rest, let them leave this place. The clan was displeased, and a guy shouted that their Shui clan had never clashed with the Xintian sect. But yet they were being blocked. And what a pity for him that the elders are absent. They would not have allowed such iniquity. The warrior immediately told the young lord that the higher the sun rises, the brighter its sunset. To engage in a battle whose outcome has already been decided is to defy fate, knowing that it is not on their side. The young gentleman replied, "Quite right. Before crushing the enemy, bring him to the brink of madness. Let him wallow in his arrogance, it will be his doom. There's nothing more to do here. It's already time for them to leave." People had already said that even the Shui clan didn't dare to go against him. And it seems like no one would risk going against this Yiling. The warriors who had to leave said they came from far away and ended up getting nothing. The young gentleman replied that let them enjoy the triumph for the time being, but they would wait and see. Lin took his disciple with him and said that it was time for them to go. And they entered the bright world of Luotian. Lin said that he didn't expect the atmosphere inside to be so amazing. The system suddenly showed that a place for activation had been found. Should they accept the reward? Lin replied that he was receiving. The system showed that he received the projection, and the host looked at it and said it wasn't bad. The great Buddha form of the master of that golden Buddha monk was quite an unpleasant thing. If he didn't use the heaven burial coffin, it would be a serious battle. The head ordered his men that they should all scatter and search for rare herbs, but they need not go far away. Let them keep an eye on each other. Lin realized that he only wanted to complete the task, but since everyone was so enthusiastic, it was worth exploring the place a bit. Some guys got trapped by a monster that tried to attack them and eat them. The warriors shouted to the others to be careful. The local creatures are very dangerous. The head said that they are surrounded and everyone needs to gather. In this world, even the monsters have reached the level of the golden core. We can't let our guard down. Hong replied that if they want resources, let them show their strength. No one gives them away for free. But it was more complicated than that. Suddenly the birds began to fly by, and a pack of monkeys swooped down after them. The head immediately ordered his men to get ready for battle. The warriors immediately started fighting the pack of monkeys. The monkeys were so sinister that they were ready to eat everyone and chop them into small pieces. But suddenly one of them grabbed the girl and she screamed and begged for help. The warriors came to her to help her and attacked and tried to take him away. But the monkey was so strong that no attack did nothing to him, and his fur was so hard that he couldn't feel anything. The girl was still under him and screaming that she shouldn't do this and let someone help her already. Hong suddenly saw this sight and walked over to use his fire attack. Hong asked the girl if she was okay. The girl thanked her brother Hong. In a moment, the head also told brother Hong that he would be calmer with him and let him take care of the younger students. And these white monkeys have the power to originate souls. There are certainly too many of them, and they are very agile. Hong saw that the head was still worried about his coming, but he had better take care of himself. But the monkeys didn't just stop and in a moment pounced all together on him. But Hong had sensed them in the beginning and used a fire attack and said that they were all doomed. The warriors looked at all of this and said that their big brother Hong was awesome. And that's right. He has completely adopted his teacher Ye's style. But Hong got tired of hearing their words and told them to shut up, and wondered where that bastard Lin had disappeared to. And he must be chillin' again. At this time in the forest, Lin asked the system, was she sure that the special energy anomaly was in this direction? The system told the host that yes, that's where it was. And the new task is that way, and the reward is much better than for a normal activation. The residents of the depths of the Luotian secret world were on the tree of the great world. One of the older residents said that the fruit of the great tree of peace was finally ripe. The secret world of the great Lu opened up, allowing several human invaders to invade their territory. But the head of the peak stage fusion stone bloodline said that they should deal with it immediately. The head of the giant family entered the conversation and said that he believed that sharing the fruit of the great tree of peace was their first priority. Once they have completely eaten the fruit, they will acquire the body of the great tree of peace, and then they will crush the invaders like ants. But the head of the winged family replied that only this white mouse had already managed to steal the fruit. They can't get to it yet. The head of the dragon family that it was because the fruit ripened too suddenly. They didn't even have time to react. But the head of the Pisces family began to reply that nothing could be done about it. Now that he had eaten the fruit, the tree recognized him, and as long as he digested the fruit they could not touch him, or the tree would attack them. The head of the tree family said that it looked like all they had to do was wait for him to digest the fruit, and then grab it, and use secret methods to process it. But the head of the family of giants disagreed with them a little and said that he swore He would make that low white mouse pay for his greed. Suddenly, one of the residents said the light was fading. He was almost done digesting the fruit. Suddenly, little paws began to emerge from the fruit. The mouse immediately came out and said that she was sleeping sweetly. All the villagers looked at her and were very angry. Mouse said hello to her brothers and asked. Mouse realized that they would do something to her and might even kill her. She started to walk away slowly and told them not to stop her. The head of the giant family said that this stinky rat had become so fast the effect of the fruit of the great peach tree was truly amazing. The head of the tree clan immediately released his roots and told the others to stop wondering and find her sooner rather than later. Mouse saw that the roots of the head of the tree were following her and shouted to them that she wished to talk things over. And she is, after all, reasonable and willing to talk. Suddenly, Mouse saw an unfamiliar portal in front of her in a moment. She was not frightened and jumped into it. Once inside, she felt very sick and said she felt dizzy. But she didn't know where she was going. The head of the winged family said that who would have thought that by digesting the fruit, she had obtained the power of spatial movement. And if she runs away, fully digest the fetus and learn cultivation, and that will be a real disaster. So she needs to humble herself and die here. The head of the winged family didn't spare the mouse and let loose an attack with her feathers. The mouse was hit and screamed in pain. Falling to the ground, Mouse said she doesn't want to be eaten. Mouse wants to survive, but the head of the stone family stood behind her and said that she would die anyway, and released his attack with air. The mouse was so weak and small that the air threw it into the abyss, and it couldn't even fight back. The head of the winged family came over and said that some dead rat dares to claim the fruit of the great tree of peace. Does she even know how valuable it is? And who does she think she is to have a right to it? The head of the giant family also came down and told the mouse to run away. But he saw it standing still and asked why it did not run away. Or did she think that since she had eaten the fruit, she could get away from them? The mouse told them that the fruit did not have their names written on it. So why wasn't the mouse allowed to eat it? And now they're accusing her for nothing. She's so ashamed. The head of the tree clan asked if she knew that the tree of the great peace tree that supported the entire secret Tian world had been growing fruit, and everyone who eats it gains the body of the great Lo is the greatest body, the first in the ranking of bodies of the world of immortals. Their tribes waited hundreds of generations for this moment, and when the fruit finally appeared, she appropriated it. Let her say, must she not die so that the fruit may be returned to those to whom it rightfully belongs? The mouse was surprised and asked, did she do such a terrible thing? What should she do now? She could really die. But she asked for someone to save her. But the tree clan head tried to crush it with his hand as he suddenly received an attack from behind. As he stopped, he felt the aura and asked the stranger who he was. Lin immediately appeared and asked the system, what did she say about the energy wave coming from that white mouse? The system replied that yes, this mouse had just eaten the fruit of the great world tree, and her body had already formed the body of the great Luo. She has a huge potential for development. Lin became very curious when he heard about the peace tree. The mouse went up to him and said that the hero had saved her, and these evil people want to eat her. Lin thought for a moment and realized that this scenario seemed familiar to him. Why is it that every time he takes on a disciple, he saves someone? Had he really turned into Tangsing? But if Hong is so stubborn, at least this white and plump mouse seems like she'll be obedient, and will make her his apprentice if he doesn't fail. The head of the giant clan immediately started attacking and shouted that an invader had come, and how dare he ignore them, and now he would make him pay for it. But Lin did not run away, and stopping the hammer with one hand said that this mouse was now his. The head of the stone family also attacked and asked the stranger that he was also at the peak of the fusion stage. And how dare he say such a thing since they were all at the same level? The head of the giant family saw their support and said that it was right, and they would all crush him together. But Lin wasn't even surprised by their words, and immediately walked over and struck out with his bare hands. The head of the giant clan was greatly shocked, for he was thrown back so much that he didn't even expect such a thing. The head of the giant clan asked, how could such a simple blow have such power? But the head of the winged family did not stand aside and told the man that he was just looking for death, and unleashed a scale of attacks with her feathers. Lin used his defense and replied that since they had decided to resist, let them not blame him for being rude then, and applied the Great Wasteland Finger attack, sealing the heavens. Rising into the sky, he released an avalanche of fire at them. The heads of the clans were caught under a huge rock, and shouted for everyone to hold together and repel this attack. But seeing them advancing once more, Lin said that the stone one is being set up for a hit, and that's a bit interesting. But he wasn't even embarrassed by that, so he decided to test out his new entrance bonus, and applied the guise of a celestial emperor. But the head of the giant family was nearby, and said that he was a cursed man, And he actually used AI to create the manga. And does he now realize how badly he has let his readers down? And if he does, then all he needs is death to redeem himself. Lin stopped his hammer again and asked with surprise, AI? And told them to open their eyes wide and look. He's not an AI mangaka at all. The heads were very surprised and asked him what he was talking about. Was he showing them the original sketches? Lin didn't talk any further and struck a strong blow with his fist. But the head of the Stone clan looked out of the Stone's defense and said that it really wasn't AI manga. The head of the Tree family came over and replied that this was erroneous information, and it was time for them to retreat. But Lin told them that from now on, they should continue to leave their monthly votes. And don't let them forget that new chapters are coming out because of their support. The tribesmen were greatly surprised by his attack and asked, "What is this?" After all, under this terrifying pressure from this huge illusion, they seem so insignificant. And it's definitely something they can handle. Who was he anyway? Suddenly, the people fighting on the other side realized that this was a divine incarnation ability and even more powerful than the monk from the Martial Sky Temple. Was it really the Heavenly Lord? But who could exist such a powerful incarnation? Even the incarnations of the strongest of the Central Lands dim in front of this and can only bow in submission. Hong also saw that it was his Minner's tricks again. How much more is he hiding, he thought. Suddenly, Lin's spirit said that the Heaven Emperor was here. And would they dare to resist? But Lin immediately ordered him to kill them all without mercy. But the clansmen were not the fearful type and went to kill their enemy. But the head of the Stone clan immediately went to attack the enemy, while the others stayed below. Lin looked and told Stone that he was the toughest of them all, and used a heaven-slashing punch. The head of the Stone family saw the fire in front of him, and couldn't even dodge it. The Kaka immediately died from the attack. The head of the Tree clan said that it was too frightening a force. The head of the Giant clan decided to go the other way and replied to the Celestial Lord that he recognized that they had behaved recklessly and suggested that he stop the fight. And there was no reason for them to destroy each other. But Lin decided that he would not leave them and lowered his fiery hand. The villagers didn't think of such a thing and afterward shouted that he was a cursed man. And how could he be so cruel and ruthless? Their kind will not forgive him for this. Lin replied to them that if they could kill him, they would have done it long ago. Did they think he would believe what they said about peace? The imperial form is indeed strong, but it took 80% of his energy. One must be careful not to abuse it. And it was time for him to take on an apprentice. Lin looked around and wondered where his future apprentice was. This rat was just here after all and looked so docile. How did it escape while he was fighting over it? The mouse was running away at this point and said it was too scary. And that two-legged beast almost scared him to death. Even though he wanted to save her, he's even scarier than those 6 bad guys. But it seems that the pain from the beating is completely gone, and his legs are carrying him faster than ever before. Is it all thanks to that mysterious fruit? Suddenly she felt afraid, and she thought the biped was going to catch him. Lin started chasing it and asked the system if this rat was ahead. The system replied that it was, and if he applied a little effort, Lin looked in front of him and said, this one turned out to be a swift rat. It was all because of the fruit of the Great World Tree, and without the system's help, he'd never catch her. But once he does, he'll never let go. The mouse realized that she had a horse. And why was he approaching so fast? How did he find her in such a huge forest? Suddenly Lin was in front of her and stopped her. And the mouse was shocked that he appeared in front of her. Lin caressed her with his hand and said that the mouse didn't want to die. She promised to be his servant. So why did she run away? Mouse replied that the thing was that his aura was too intimidating. She, the mouse, couldn't stand it and ran away, and was afraid he would want to eat the mouse too. Lin said he tried both beef and horse meat, but he'd never had rat meat before. Maybe we should try it, he thought. The mouse replied that rat meat is sour and unpalatable. It'll make your stomach bloat. Lin was surprised and said he was even more interested in her, and he wants to try it too. Grabbing the mouse continued that this creature had the strongest immortal body, the body of the Great World Tree, but was frightened so easily. And it only saw it fighting and immediately ran away. And I think he would make a pet of her. 2 hours later, they stopped in the forest and cooked a meal. The mouse was asleep at this point, and when she smelled it, she said it smelled very nice. And she's still alive? Seeing the big cauldron in front of her, she was scared that this guy wanted to cook her. Lin told her to come over to him, except don't let him make him catch her again. The mouse looked at the fire and was very frightened. Lin presented her with meat and told her she was a coward. Mouse started eating and said it was delicious. And she asked, what kind of meat is this? She had never eaten anything like it. Lin replied that it was hare meat. The mouse was surprised and said that bunnies are so cute. Why do you have to eat bunnies? Lin looked and replied that they were listening to her then. The mouse said she doesn't taste like a bunny. It's better to eat bunnies. The mouse asked its master if it could have another piece of meat. Lin replied that she could, but with one condition. He would not only be her master, but also her mentor. Mouse was surprised and asked her mentor how she had earned such an honor. Wouldn't it be dangerous? Lin replied that she talks a lot. The mouse will be his apprentice and will eat good food. Mouse agreed and said she wanted to be an apprentice. She loves the patrons. Lin immediately told her to quickly greet her mentor. The mouse walked over and replied that Bai Xiaoxi's disciple was greeting her mentor. The system immediately congratulated the master that he had completed the task of accepting a disciple, and the reward was received. The divine ability of the Great Five Wheels of Rebirth technique. He then gains the great technique of the Five Wheels of Rebirth and destroys everything in his path and deals massive damage to the area. Lin rejoiced and said another powerful ability. That's great. And asked the system, is he underestimating him? With his noble nature, he would never hurt defenseless animals. Mouse suddenly asked the teacher, was he talking to her now? Lin replied that he would now pass one technique to her, and let her be sure to appreciate it and practice it diligently, and she should be a good student of his, and released a beam of energy that was directed at Xi's head. Lin said that she had obtained the way of the great Dao Luo. She replied afterward that this technique is amazing, and she feels as if her mind is illuminated, and she thanks the teacher for giving her the technique. Lin afterwards told her to get up and drink the soup and eat the meat. After all, the meat was already fully cooked. She tasted her mentor's dish and said it was also very tasty. Her mentor is so kind to her. Being his student is a real happiness for her. Mouse will definitely repay him for his kindness. Suddenly, everything above them began to crumble. Lin asked, what's going on? Why was the sky of the secret world starting to collapse? The system immediately said that it was discovered that the life cycle of the Luo ancient world tree was coming to an end. It can no longer support the work of the secret world, and may it leave it as soon as possible. Lin said that the secret world was beginning to crumble. They should leave soon. Suddenly he saw Xi crying and asked why she was doing that. She replied to the teacher that she doesn't know why, but the mouse is so sad. Lin said that maybe it has to do with the fact that her body is connected to the low tree. But now the most important thing was to meet the head of the sect and leave this world. Lin opened the portal and moved. The head began shouting to his own to get them all out of the secret world quickly. Let them be careful not to hurt themselves. The elder said that he didn't expect something like this to happen here. The head looked around and asked, where is little brother Yi? Do they need to wait for him? Lin came out of the portal and told them that the situation was critical, and they should leave the secret world soon. The head said great, and the younger brother came, and the only one left was his disciple. Zhao asked Head Yi, who is that in his hands? Lin replied that it was his new disciple. The head was surprised and asked where his other disciple was. After all, his previous disciple, although he had a difficult character, but his appearance was divine and his talent was incredible. This one was just a huge rat without any cultivation. Lin left and trailed off, telling them not to worry. After all, he feels that he is already out of the secret world, and will meet him outside. Coming out of the world, the elders shouted that they had arrived. And this secret world was full of dangers, but thanks to Lin, they were able to obtain many rare resources. Hong walked up to the teacher and said that he had come too. Lin looked and imagined that this was his new student. From this day forward, they should live in peace and love. Hong was surprised, but told his mentor that he understood. She came down to the ground and asked where did she end up. She looked into the red portal and began to cry and miss her home, and realized she was about to disappear. But it turned out to be much worse. Various creatures from the other world also crossed over into the real world. Is this the world outside the secret world? And why is there such weak spiritual energy here? Snake also asked, are these two-legged creatures the same people spoken of in the ancient records? But why is their cultivation so weak? Rhino replies that since they are in a new environment, they need to learn to adapt. So he proposes to take over the land and redistribute the territories. The head of the Wing family said they needed to enslave them first, and then they divide up the territories. The head suddenly said that things are bad. These creatures are from the depths of the secret world, ancient relics. Their strength is incomparable to those they have met before. There are hundreds of cultivators here at the spirit transformation stage level, and dozens have already reached the fusion stage. The warrior was surprised and asked, ancient relics? The head replied that the cultivation world is full of different races and creatures. The stone slab in the secret world mentioned their origins. These creatures came here from different corners of all worlds. They had survived here for countless years. If these alien beings united, they would be able to rival the 5 strongest sects in the eastern region. Zhao wondered how they could stand it. Couldn't they try to negotiate? The head replied that it was impossible. They are barbarians, and they had just destroyed their home. Now they will surely come for revenge and take over their wilderness region. The warriors asked, are they really doomed? What should they do? Elder Feng came out and told them not to be afraid. They have Lin. As long as he is with them, they will definitely make it through. The warriors rejoiced and said that they had Lin and they were no match for him. Hong thought that judging by his confidence, the mentor would be able to withstand even the onslaught of such a mass of opponents. The system immediately appeared and said that a new quest had been activated. Have the master win the trust of the 10,000 natives of the secret world and join the Xiantian sect. Fighting with this crowd wasn't enough, but to persuade them? That's a ticket to the nut house. And she's saying they can't be destroyed? Only to subdue them? The system has told him to do as he sees fit. The chief walked up to them and asked, is he the same Lin, the best fighter here? Lin replied that yes, he was. Lin saw a very large number of creatures in front of him. And the Xiantian sect would definitely be able to shelter everyone? Everyone was so strange looking. The monsters asked, what is there to be afraid of? He's only one. And even if he's at the peak of the fusion stage, can he resist them all? So they all decided to attack him together. Lin used his defense and thought, what should he do next? Fighting he knows how to fight, but running away is the worst. And it looks like it won't be easy. She said the teacher looked a little puzzled. He's been so kind to her, teaching her techniques, feeding her mate. She can't let him stay alone. Hong heard her words and asked what she was going to do. She ran and shouted to the teacher that she would come to his rescue. She didn't question him anymore and stood in front of the monsters and decided to protect the teacher. After this, Ci suddenly became different. Her eyes immediately began to glow and improved several times over. The head saw this and said, Junior Brother Ye's disciple is not as simple as he seems. His aura inspires involuntary reverence. The monsters were greatly surprised and said that it was the aura of the ancient Luo tree. And they realized that the Luo tree had not abandoned them. All the monsters immediately fell to their knees in front of her and said that they were asking the Luo tree to guide their people. Hong realized that just as he had suspected, his every move is part of a carefully thought-out plot. His true nature is much deeper than it appears. Lin immediately realized that Luo's tree had given birth to a fruit that was a way for him to be reborn. And when she ate it, the ancient Luo's body was born inside her, and his will remained. And now the will of Luo's tree is awakening and trying to take over Xi's body. He asked her if she was all right. Lin walked up to her chief Luo and shouted for Xi to wake up. At that moment, in Mouse's subconscious mind, she realized that the teacher was calling her. And she couldn't sleep. Upon arriving, she turned to the teacher and said that she thanked him for waking her up. The monsters were greatly surprised and began to ask indignantly, the tree Great Luo had become this person's disciple? But how is that possible? Could this two-legged animal be the teacher of the Great Luo? Lin saw this and whispered to Xi that she should now do as he told her. Xia didn't answer anything and just nodded her head. She turned to them and said that the destruction of this secret world is the will of heaven, and they need not worry. They are all his children. He will never leave them. Lin also turned to the great tree Luo and said that the sky is merciful. Their home is destroyed, but the Xiantian sect is willing to be their new refuge, and they would stand together and survive the calamity. She turned to her teacher. The monster said he didn't understand. Is Tree Luo saying that they are to submit to the humans? Xi turned again and asked, did they doubt her words? The monster was frightened and replied that he didn't dare. She listened and said okay then, and let them follow her and the teacher to the Xiantian sect. The system immediately said that it congratulated the host for completing the task and would receive a sundial as a reward, and replied that it was a success. But this reward isn't particularly impressive. He has a golden hand that makes him stronger without having to train, so it's just useless. This practice space could be beneficial. He will be so passionate about learning, and he will just be there for him. That's great. But this guy needs to be coached some more. Hong saw his mentor's face and wondered why he was looking at him like that. Is he resentful that he didn't help him solve the problem with the beasts? The head was shocked and walked over to ask, is this a dream, or is it for real? Did these powerful beings join the Xiantian sect? Zhao also told the head that from now on, their Xiantian sect would become one of the 10 strongest sects in the eastern region. Elder Feng asked, is this even possible? Although he's glad that the wild region has been saved, but it seems like no one cares about his mountain-shifting sect now. She told the face of the teacher that she had done it, and they were really listening to her. Lin replied that it was great, but Lin became curious and asked how she felt about this will of the great Luo tree. She replied that there was no way, and since she woke up, she couldn't feel anything else. Lin said that they should then take them out and return to the Xiantian sect. The enemies of the Xiantian sect came to the Heaven Ascension sect. The servants met the saint and asked what was wrong with him. Why does he look so beaten up? He was full of energy when he left. What happened in the wild region? Xiao was without energy and couldn't even answer people. The elders also ran outside and asked the saint what had happened to him. Xiao replied that he must see the teacher. The elder told the saint that he had heard that the great teacher was now in meditation. What has happened? Where are the elders and their associates? Xiao replied that they were all dead. The elder was surprised and asked who did it. Let him tell him so he can report to the sect. Xiao didn't want to say anything, but he said that it was the Xian sect and the head of Yiling Peak, and outside the temple of the Heaven Ascension sect, people were asking how is this possible? The elders and they died? But who would even dare to kill the elders of the Heaven Ascension sect? Even a saint almost died. This is a real insult. Residents also said there was breaking news. There was hot news in the eastern region. The guy was surprised and asked, a Heaven Ascension sect saint was defeated by a red girl of the same level as himself? He was told that the Heaven Ascension sect had lost 9 of its strongest elders. The murderer is the head of the Xian Yiling sect. A guest from another sect in the inn was saying that this world was changing. The barbarians from the savage region had killed the strongest of the Heaven Ascension sect. The guy replied to him that the Heaven Ascension sect was strong, but if they faced them, this battle would be decided beforehand. The girl also said that the Heaven Ascension sect is the greatest power. It has since ancient times spawned immortals. Their power is not something these barbarians can compare to. In the Eastern Region sect at the Buddha temple in the capital city, the senior monk said that the Heaven Ascension sect had declared war on the Xian sect, and the Buddha temple now had to avenge its blood. The monk replied that he understood and would tell everyone. And in the wild region, after the destruction of the secret world, the concentrated spiritual energy came out. So what a start to the prosperity of this impoverished region. Many creatures now take advantage of this to enhance their powers. Since they had taken on 10,000 beings, the strength of the Xian sect had greatly increased. But after declaring war, things would be complicated. In the martial arts square in the Xian warriors sect's territory, Xian warriors said that the Heaven Ascension sect was going on the attack, and the Buddha temple? He heard that they had accused them of evil deeds. He was told that it was strange, for they had not seen the head and senior counselors for days. The guy replied that they say they are in meditation. Lin is so strong, but still continues to meditate. This is a blessing for the Xian sect. At this time on the peak of the void, Lin was lying in the sun and didn't even think about his business and just enjoyed the rest. Suddenly, she came and told the teacher that she had made it. Lightning made an unimaginably delicious drink. Lin was surprised and answered her to quickly put the tube on. She had already done so and held it out to the teacher. Lin immediately tasted the drink and got exactly the right flavor. He told her that it was a great job, and he's letting her make 50 more cups, and he can keep one as a reward. She was surprised and replied that she was thanking the teacher. Lin realized that these drink recipes received for the daily assignment, and they are so much tastier than the ones in the past. Even the Ice King will appreciate his culinary masterpiece. Hong looked and said that his mentor was stupid, still willing to make money from these strange drinks. Where are his fried calamari? How are they not ready yet? Let him look at how she's trying hard for his sake. He's even worse than a mouse. Hong replied to the teacher that almost everything is ready. He will bring everything right away. Bringing up the food said for the mentor to enjoy. Hong asked the teacher, is everything okay? Is there anything that needs to be added? Lin replied that it was fine. Let him continue with it. Hong suddenly asked his mentor if he could get permission to train in the sundial. He is so eager to develop faster. Seeing that he was impatient again, Hong told the teacher that he wanted to become stronger so that his sect would be even safer. Lin replied to him not to worry. His sect is safe, and he just stays with him and supports him. Hong at this moment thought that his teacher was just afraid that he would be stronger than him. But she told the teacher that if Big Brother wants it so badly, let him go. His duties she will take over. Lin stood up and said that since his sister was so insistent, he would allow him to train in the sundial, and let him thank her for it. Hong kneeled down and replied that he was grateful to the teacher and she too for asking for him. Told them that he would go inside and let them continue to prepare the food. Hong realized that the day he would come out of seclusion, there would come a time when Lin would bow his head to him. Lin immediately noticed that Hong was already tossing with impatience. He thinks he can turn the game around. But to him, it's just a pity, because the mentor only grows stronger when he faces a worthy opponent. So he needs to humble himself and keep investing on it, pumping up his cultivation level. She turned to the teacher, 50 new cups ready. And could she drink this immortality herb tea? Lin answered her that of course he could. He said he could choose any cup he wanted. She was very happy about it and thanked the teacher. Lin suddenly said that other people pet cats, but he stroked the mouse. The mouse suddenly trembled and asked, where is the cat? and she is very much afraid of cats. Lin said that Luo's ancient body got to her was just a waste. Even a cat is smaller than him. Besides, there are 10,000 fighters from the secret world under her patronage, and he's still afraid of cats? She replied that the mouse was just afraid. Lin asked her why she didn't go to practice sundial. 100 years passed like one day in the outside world. Her ancient Luo's body would be greatly strengthened. She said the mouse doesn't want to. Then she won't see her teacher for ages and she'll be sad. Besides, practicing is boring. Mouse likes to go with the teacher and eat goodies. Lin started laughing, and that he liked it, and that they are alike. Not like some people. And by the way, they say that demons, having reached the stage of spirit transformation, can take human form. Why hasn't he ever seen her in human form? She replied that because the mouse had forgotten about it. Lin suggested that they should then try it right away. She said that everything was fine. Suddenly, all of a sudden, she turned into a mouse girl. Lin was surprised and replied that straightforwardly she was a miniature loli. But Lin was a little shocked and asked, "What the hell is this?" She asked the teacher, "What's wrong? Does the mouse look bad?" Lin closed his eyes and said very badly, "This is too scary." And asked she, "Is she bullying him on purpose?" She replied that it wasn't at all. And the mouse tried very hard. But for some reason, she can only look like this, and she feels bad about it. Lin suddenly told her not to worry, and asked her to turn back. Lin saw her coming and said that half a stick of incense had passed, and he still wasn't turning. She told the teacher that the mouse suddenly forgot how to do it. Lin asked, "Is she sure she is a mouse and not a pig?" Mouse answered the teacher not to get angry. Mouse will try again. She will definitely get it right these days. But she asked the teacher if he wanted to continue stroking the mouse. Lin replied that no, he wanted to be quiet. She ran to the water and looked at it and said that it was very strange, but she looked quite nice after all. The border guard between the wilderness region and the spiritual region, ships were heading to the eastern region. A guy said that the anger of the first immortal sect of the eastern region's first immortal sect is a rage that no one can bear. The Xiantian sect is doomed, but he was answered that before. He was so arrogant. Now he would die in agony. And he's sure now he's already mouthing off out of fear. But suddenly a servant came in and told them, "Young master, that the battle had begun. And the fighting is already going on outside." The master started the insults and told him to explain properly. Who's fighting who? Otherwise he'll wring his neck and throw him in the cesspool to feed the maggots. The servant said it's the Heaven Ascension sect. Just now, their troops invaded the wilderness region. The master came out of his room and asked the servant what he said, and rejoiced that at last the Heavenly Ascension sect had come, and these wretched savages dared to oppose him. He knew their days were numbered. What a sight to behold. At this moment in the wild region, the mountain-moving sect master said that a huge army was advancing towards them. How many cultivators are involved? The elder told the old man, begging him not to be a hero this time. If there was no way out, he should just run. After all, he is their strongest protector, the symbol of faith of all the local cultivators. If he dies, it will be an irreparable loss. But at the Xiantian sect, in the training area had already prepared and shouted that the enemy was at the gate. And let everyone get ready. And they are already being attacked. Zhao said 500 years of hard training, and he only lacked just a little bit to reach fusion steel. And it seems to him, just shutting himself in reclusiveness isn't enough for a breakthrough. Su said that he should still be happy. If it wasn't for the techniques and pills bestowed by little brother Yi, he wouldn't have advanced a single step in these 500 years, even if he lived his entire term. The warriors asked, "Where's the head? Why hasn't he come out yet?" The leader came out and said that the battle is inevitable. All they have to do is fight to the end. Fortunately, he had managed to break through to the fusion stage before the fight. Suddenly, he saw a shadow in the fire and asked, "This aura of hers is frighteningly strong, even surpassing junior brother Yi." Suddenly, Hong himself appeared out of the fire. Zhao said that this is his senior apprentice, a worthy disciple of a great teacher. His talent is simply monstrous, and asked him to tell him what stage he had reached. But Hong got angry and said, "How dare he? And what kind of impertinent words are these?" Without continuing the conversation, he immediately attacked him. Su told Hong that his older brother had only misspoken. They're still disciples of the same sect. A disciple of the same sect? And suddenly started laughing loudly. He is the greatest master of the demonic path, a true immortal. And how can pathetic ants like them count on his patronage? If it wasn't for Lin, he wouldn't have wasted his time here. But now everything had changed. Su got angry and said that he was completely mad from practicing. Let him watch his tongue, or else he'll complain to little brother Yi, whom told her to do whatever she wanted. He's nothing to him. After all, he can't even take care of himself now. With his current strength, who can tame who is another matter. Hong added that such an incomparable treasure instead of wasting it here, would be better placed in his hands. Zhao was surprised and called him impertinent and asked, "What is he doing? Is he really not afraid that little brother you will punish him?" But Hong didn't leave them any chance and shouted for them all to run away. And he let out a burst of fire and headed for his men. The head was surprised and said, "What a powerful spiritual force." He didn't expect that even daring him to break through to the fusion stage, he wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure alone. "Who is this disciple of junior brother Yi?" Hong looked at it and said that a crowd of insignificant insects. But suddenly he was surprised and asked, "What is going on? Why has the sundial moved an inch?" The head shouted to Hong that he was junior brother Ye's disciple, the greatest genius of their sect, and the sect had always supported him. And why would he stoop to such a despicable act? Hong got angry upon hearing about the lowlife and asked who was he to teach him. Hong didn't listen to him and attacked immediately. The head stood up and asked, "What kind of strength is this? The disciple is only lightly hit, and he can't even fight back. And the difference from who he was before entering the sundial is tremendous." Hong was angry and asked why some little thing dared to tell him what to do. He didn't kill them immediately, which was already a great mercy on his part. The head said that the Ascension sect's army had arrived. And Lin, the main culprit, let him come out immediately and accept his death. Hong ran to attack and said just in time. And it was time to deal with this man. The head also told his men to hurry up and go too. But Lin rested all this time and said that drinking tea and milk freely is what life is worth living for. And Hong realized that it was a disgrace for a cultivator. And such a swaggering attitude, and he calls himself an immortal. It was just his good fortune. He had accidentally received a supreme blessing, which was why he had acquired so many rare techniques and priceless resources. But now it would all be his. Lin saw his disciple that he had finally come out of his reclusiveness. The teacher had missed him so much. Hong replied that the Heaven Ascension sect had arrived. Outside, there is already a battle for his life, and he happens to be resting peacefully. Isn't he afraid of dying? Had they already attacked? Why didn't he know anything? Hong replied that he was enjoying his cozy world behind the soundproof barrier and talks me out of this world. Of course he didn't hear anything. And now let him listen carefully. The enemies were already on their way, shouting for Lin to come out and accept his death. Lin was sipping his tea at this moment, and upon hearing the shouts, he shouted that the war had already begun. Hong said he could see for himself the situation. But if he handed him everything he had, he thought about saving him. Lin was surprised and asked him what he was carrying. Hong shouted at him not to make a fool of himself. They're Obma smart people, so you have to speak straight. Suddenly a mouse suddenly came running, and Hong, seeing it, told them to stop the planet and asked what is it. C went up to the teacher and told him that these are the same chicken wings he asked me to cook for him. They're also spicy. Also seeing his older brother, Hoon asked, did he come out of reclusiveness so quickly? But Hong got a little scared and told her to stand still, and thought it was the same white rat. And why did it change so much? That appearance looks creepy. Why the hell does my mentor have such strange tastes? He understands everything, but this is beyond good, evil, and common sense. What was that look in his eyes? He wasn't thinking something like that, was he? He's an honorable man. The head also arrived at the peak and asked the unruly disciple what he was going to do to his teacher, and shouted to the younger brother to be careful. But when they saw a girl with a mouse head near them, they were very frightened and shocked by what they saw. She told them not to be afraid, and it's just her, a mouse. The head took a closer look and replied to the boys that it was little brother Ye's second apprentice. Well, the image of her is certainly frightening. And junior brother Yi not only has outstanding talent, but his taste is so exquisite that they have never dreamed of it. Lin told them to stop immediately and asked what were they even talking about? And why were they all so tense? The head replied to his younger brother that his older apprentice was plotting treachery. He tried to take the sundial and even attacked them. Lin was surprised and asked his student if this was true. Hong replied that even if it was, what would his mentor do to him? The army is already here. His death is imminent. Does he still not understand the situation he is in? The head heard him say that he was a damn traitor. And little brother, you treated him so well. What did they even realize? He understood that they had been treating him like a servant all this time. He couldn't take it anymore. Lin grabbed his face afterward and said that it was karma. He told the others not to blame him. It was his fault. And he disregarded his students' feelings and how sorry he is. C walked up to the teacher after seeing that and took his hand. The head looked at his younger brother and said that he had never seen him like this before. Hong also asked his mentor, did he think he would believe this crocodile remorse? Let the mentor continue to pretend. But it's too late. He's seen his real face. Lin told his student that he realized his mistake. Can he forgive him? They are teacher and student. Maybe they can start over. Hong replied to his mentor not to even dream. He was already disgusted with him. The system immediately said that the master had successfully completed the temporary task, and she sincerely admits her mistake, putting all her emotions into it, and eliciting the empathy of those around her. Immortal Lord Technique Reward. Lin was glad that he had finally completed the assignment. What a strange assignment it was. But the reward was worth it, so there was a reason he had made this spectacle. Lin thought afterwards and decided that since the task was finished, now he could have some fun. But the thought of a mouse drinking tea and milk for monthly tickets and her spiritual strength increased dramatically. She also wanted to take on the guise of lowly to please him. But C realized that the teacher didn't like it, and now she realizes she needs more tea and milk to increase her spiritual power.